Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry.
Hello, and a very, very warm welcome to you to what is now episode 2 of the Josh's Dartistry podcast, the JDP. Hopefully you've had a listen to our pilot episode that we recorded a couple of weeks ago. And we've had a bit of feedback on that, and therefore we decided to get round the table again for episode 2. We've had a little bit of a play around with a few bits and pieces. It was good to get some audio down and see how it went first time round, and make a decision about where we're going forward, change a few things round, have a bit of a mix-up. Nothing too major in terms of changes, but just a small change on the identity front. But that being said, it's now time to welcome the main man. Here he is. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Mr. Josh Gorton. How are you, Josh?
Not too bad, John. How are you?
Yeah, I'd be better if a certain game at Wembley this afternoon had gone in my favour, but we're not here to talk about football.
That's a shame.
Yeah, you sound absolutely devastated yourself, Josh.
I am very, very upset.
I'm not sure if everybody knows our footballing allegiances around this table just yet, but yeah, I'm a very, very disappointed Tottenham Hotspur fan today. But
what do you mean today?
Yeah, most times. But anyway, football aside, moving on. We're also joined, of course, by Mr. Neil Connor. How you doing, Neil?
I'm very, very well, thank you.
And how have you been this last week? What have you been up to, buddy?
It's been a busy week, to be honest. My passion as well is football. I also manage a football team, and we've had 3 fixtures in 5 days, which is always a busy period.
Business end of the season.
So managed to catch the Premier League action on Wednesday. We had at one of our games on Thursday, so just caught up on the highlights of Thursday night's Premier League action. Another game today, and then watched the FA Cup semi-final.
Anyway, moving on, because we're not discussing that. Josh, what have you been up to this week? Anything exciting?
Yeah, quite a busy week. I was at Sky for both nights of the Premier League in Rotterdam, reporting the action. That was awfully a fantastic double-header. Some great results, fantastic atmosphere. So, yeah, really enjoyed that. Busy week.
Excellent stuff. Now, obviously, I touched on episode 1, or the pilot episode, if you want to call it, of Josh's Dartistry that we recorded a couple of weeks ago. Josh, what kind of feedback have you had, whether it's sort of social media or speaking to people that you know? What have people come back and said?
It's been really, really positive feedback. Really chuffed with how everyone's enjoyed the show. We're happy with the amount of views we got. Like I say, really, I think everyone enjoyed kind of the interactive element. So, yeah, really pleased. Yeah,
so we mentioned in episode 1 that we were going to upload it primarily to Josh's website, www.joshisdartistry.com, and stream it from there. We also uploaded it to YouTube. I think we've probably had about 200 to 300 hits on YouTube,
yeah,
and
right.
Quite a few more on your website as well, Josh.
I think about 400, 500 last time I checked.
Yeah, and we did say that we wanted to get sort of 2 or 3 episodes in the bank before we made it available on iTunes. So we'll record this episode, and then we'll have a little conversation about possibly getting it onto iTunes and being able to download onto your phone, tablet, or whatever it is you listen to your podcasts on. So that's very exciting. That's all to come in the future. Before we continue, I must mention a man by the name of Mr. Colin Church. Now, Colin Church is my father-in-law, and he's a very, very talented musician. He's got a little studio in his house, and the theme tune that you heard, the theme tune to Josh's Dartistry that you heard us introducing just then, Colin created that for us. He wrote it, he recorded it, and he's very kindly given us permission to use it. So no royalty fees due there, ladies and gentlemen. We don't have to dip into our pockets to use that. And also some of the other sound effects and jingles that we use in the JDP have been created and given to us by Colin Church. So a really, really big thank you to Colin for providing us with those. What do you think of your theme tune, Josh?
I think it's fantastic. Really like it.
When I went to Colin and asked him to write us something, I gave him a mantle of I want 70s sports cheese, and that's what he came back with.
Fits the bill perfectly.
But anyway, listen, a big thank you to Colin. He's contributed to the audio of the show fantastically, and I'm sure we will continue to do so as well. So, Josh's Dartistry podcast, episode 2. What is coming up this evening? Well, obviously, one of the main things we're going to discuss is the Premier Premier League and the results thereof. So it's been a couple of weeks since we recorded. We won't go into major detail on every night. We are going to discuss the double header in Rotterdam that's been this week, and we're going to sort of take an in-depth look at the results and the scores and the performances from those two nights in Holland. But since we recorded, obviously we've had Judgment Night. That was in Liverpool. That's been and gone. We lost two people, Josh.
Yeah, we did indeed. Gerwin Price, his fate was already sealed prior to Judgment Night. He was eliminated after week 8. Mensur Suljovic and Peter Wright were battling it out on Judgment Night for survival. Mensur Suljovic lost to Michael van Gerwen, which meant Peter Wright was already safe before his game against Daryl Gurney. So yeah, Mensur and Gerwin Price left us after Judgment Night. Mensur very unlucky, second highest tournament average, but just didn't get enough points, unfortunately.
Neil, I don't think anyone was surprised with the two names. On the last episode, we sort of discussed the potential of which two we were losing. I don't think anyone was surprised come the end of Judgment Night.
No, I agree, and I think that was what in the last episode we discussed in terms of the odds from the bookmakers as well. They were the two favourites to go, particularly as I think Suljovic, he had Van Gerwen, didn't he, in that last week. So yeah, and Peter Wright still improving, I think.
So obviously Judgment Night been and gone, and then we moved on to Sheffield. We had another round of results in Sheffield, and then obviously the next Premier League instalment was the double header in Rotterdam, which, as I said, we are going to be focusing on this evening. We're also going to be having some news coming from the Pro Tour and the Euro Tour with regards to recent results. Josh will be bringing us bang up to date on the Pro Tour and the Euro Tour. Big news coming in from regarding Max Hopp, obviously, for those who've had their eyes on that, which we'll get into a little bit later on. We'll also be having our Premier League predictions slot. We'll be giving our predictions for the upcoming Night 14 in Manchester. We'll also be taking a very, very quick look back at the results that have come in the league table. I know Neil will be...
Yeah. We can do it now. Should we do it now?
Neil will be especially keen to discuss results over the last few weeks because he had an absolute barnstormer for Judgment Night, and it's going to take Josh, myself and the Josh's Dartistry podcast listener something rather extraordinary to catch him, but who knows, we shall see. So we'll be going over those and checking out the league table. We'll also be looking into the odds. So what are the odds? Neil will be bringing us, of course, all the very latest, as he did in the first episode. Again, Premier League odds, European tours, and everything such like. We'll also be looking at your questions. So again, we've been tweeting this week and on Facebook asking you to send in your questions for the show. We will do our very, very best to answer your questions. We've had some, again, absolutely cracking questions come into to the Twitter feed, so thank you for that. Thanks for getting involved. It is very important that we get your questions in, and we'd like you to feel part of the show, so carry on doing that. You can always call the show, of course, on 07739 738 329 and leave us a voicemail in our voicemail box. We are, of course, bringing back one of the most popular items from the pilot episode. Neil, we are bringing back Challenge Josh.
Yes, I am excited about this episode's Challenge Josh. It's taken me a lot of time to put together, and it is darts related, but we're going to be testing your skills on music as well.
I'm glad it's darts related. That's a
bonus.
That is a bonus. But yeah, once again, I've seen the questions, and I'm really looking forward.
Sadistic smile on Neil's face over in the.
I'm really looking forward to Challenge Josh again this evening. Okay, and Neil will also be bringing us some news from the sporting darting world, possibly some pieces of news that don't necessarily always appear in mainstream media. Josh, Neil, you got some interesting stories for us this evening.
Yeah, I've got 3 or 4 items to go through. As you say, these are stories that aren't really in the mainstream media. I think an interesting one about Darren Webster and the assault that happened on him. So that'll be one of the items that I cover a bit later on.
Okay, and we've also got a very, very, very exciting announcement to make. Included in this podcast this evening, Josh has managed to secure an interview with a very prominent member of the darting world, an exclusive interview for the Josh's Dartistry podcast. Josh, you want to tell us a little bit about that, buddy?
Yeah, certainly, John. I had the pleasure of speaking to Sky Sports commentator Rod Studd this morning. Obviously, Rod has been part of the Sky Sports darts commentary team now since 2009, one of the most prominent figures. He was definitely in Rotterdam for the double header of the Premier League, so we're just going to get his thoughts on what happened in Holland, the Premier League going forward. So very, very happy to speak to Rod this morning.
Yeah, really pleasing to be able to get hold of somebody like Rod and get his insight into the game. Very knowledgeable guy, been commentating on the sport for a long, long time. Fantastic journalist. So really interested and can't wait for that a little bit later on. Okay, so that is what we're going to hopefully bring you this evening. Don't forget you can follow us at Josh's Dartistry on Twitter. You can also check out the Josh's Dartistry Facebook page. Just do a little search for Josh's Dartistry and you'll find the page there. You can also go onto the Josh's Dartistry website, which is www.joshsdartistry.com. On there you'll find Josh's blogs, his reviews, his interviews, and everything you can imagine from the world of darts. So don't forget to get onto the website, guys, and check out some of the work there. Okay, in the meantime, it's time we moved on. Before we get too heavy into results, Premier League, that kind of thing, obviously we mentioned Judgment Night a little bit earlier, which was of course held in Liverpool at the Echo Arena. Very, very unfortunately, we had some sad news, quite incredibly, during the broadcast, which started to break during the final game of the evening. And well, we lost a legend. Eric Bristow unfortunately passed away that night, Josh.
Yeah, really, really sad news. Eric was attending, obviously, the Premier League darts in Liverpool at the Echo Arena. I think he was doing a corporate function with some VIPs before the action, and as he left the venue, he suffered a heart attack. Paramedics did their best to revive him, but obviously, unfortunately, he passed away later that evening, and the news filtered through during the final game of the night between Peter Wright and Daryl Gurney. Really, really emotional night, and I think, obviously, when the fans became aware of Eric's passing, they all serenaded him with chants of "There's only one Eric Bristow." Really, really moving scenes and a tragic, tragic passing. Legend of the sport.
Well, I mean, Peter Wright's demeanour on stage at the end, when obviously news had filtered through as to what was happening. Poor Pete, he looked absolutely inconsolable when he came off the stage. Yeah,
he was devastated. I'm told that I think Daryl and Peter were told of Eric's death just before they went on stage, so it must have been very difficult for them to play that game.
It's funny, because fun is probably not the right word to use in this circumstance, but listening back to our pilot episode, obviously Eric isn't an active player on the tours at the moment and hasn't been for a very, very long time, but we mentioned Eric Bristow twice in the pilot episode. Neil, I think you mentioned him when we were talking about your earliest darting memories.
Yep.
And then we also mentioned him, I think it was part of Challenge Josh as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Challenge Josh as well, when we were asking Josh to name those players who formed the breakaway and formed the PDC back in '93. So, the name Eric Bristow completely synonymous with darts, and yeah, it was no surprise to me that we'd already mentioned him twice in our pilot episode, despite the fact that he was not an active player on the tour. Neil, Eric Bristow, thoughts?
Very, very sad. As I said on the last episode, he was the main man really when I first started getting into darts, when it was really hitting mainstream TV in the 1980s. Fantastic player. Interesting character. I watched some footage last night. He was playing Jockey Wilson in Scotland. Really playing to the crowd and was someone that was spurred on if he was getting grief off of the crowd. So he really did push darts to the next level, I feel, in the 80s. As I say, when it was starting to come on mainstream TV. So he had his issues after he had dartitis, which I think developed over a long period of time, and never really recovered from that. But later on, obviously, there's his relationship with Phil Taylor. He was the one that really discovered Phil Taylor and sponsored Phil Taylor. So not only did he have a massive impact on the darting world in terms of his performances and his achievements, but he also found darts' greatest ever player.
I remember the last time I went to Ali Pali for the Worlds, being out in the fans' village where you can get a bite to eat and something to drink, and seeing Eric. And he always used to have on the nights that he was there, he used to have a little area set up where you could kind of have a meet and greet with him and a chat and have your photo taken and get his autograph. And the stand was always very busy. I always saw a lot of people queuing up to just have their moment with Eric, and of course they're queuing up to get their photo. But I think a lot of people were queuing up just to say hello and have a little conversation with a legend of the sport that these fans followed. Josh.
Yeah, I think he was darts' first real superstar, really. I mean, obviously Phil Taylor, 16-time world champion, a product of Eric Bristow, as Neil referenced. But I think if you asked anyone to name one darts player, I think Eric Bristow would be the top of many people's list. He was an absolute legend of the sport, and as Neil said, he was an integral part of the sport's growth between the 1980s and the 1990s. But I've got to say, I thought Keith Deller, he was at Sky Sports on spotting duty on the night of Eric's passing in Liverpool, and later that evening he came on stage with Dave Clark and spoke of Eric, and I thought it was fantastic. I mean, bearing in mind Keith and Eric have been friends now for over 30 years. Obviously they contested the 1983 World Final, which Keith Deller won, but he spoke with such eloquence and emotion, and I thought it was fantastic of him, bearing in mind he just lost a very close friend just a number of hours earlier.
Yeah, and fair play to all the fans in attendance. Obviously, the news probably filtered through on people's mobile phones during the Liverpool show, and obviously there were long and loud chants. Of there's only one Eric Bristow, and then of course the following week in Sheffield, the fans gave him an absolutely fantastic reception and fantastic send off. So credit to everyone who was in attendance. So from the three of us here on the Josh's Dartistry podcast, obviously we're very sad, and we send our condolences to Eric's family, friends, and of course the wider darting world, Neil.
Absolutely. A sporting great and a terrific character, and I think that's why he was so popular. Very interesting stories. I think when he got his MBE in 1989, he actually broke protocol and turned his back on the Queen. I think when he realised his mistake, his response was to say "sorry, darling," which I think she was very, very amused by. So again, on our TV sets, he was in. I think he was fourth in I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
Yeah.
Interesting person to watch during that series. Someone that's quite straight talking.
Yeah.
And very, very popular. So a real tragic loss.
A few controversies in his life, which I'm not going to dwell on. But what I found quite nice was a lot of people who spoke of him did acknowledge those kind of things, but also said that that's what made the man, in terms of he spoke his mind. He spoke as he found. Yes, every now and then that would get him in trouble, but he did speak as he find, and a lot of people were paying credit to him for doing that, because sometimes in the sporting arena those people can be few and far between.
Oh yeah, what you see is what you get with Eric. There's no kind of front with him. He's up front, he's honest, and that's what I think a lot of people enjoyed about him and respected him for. But like I say, tragic loss for the sport of darts.
Okay, yeah, as I said, from all three of us here at Josh's Dartistry, we pay tribute to Eric Bristow, and of course, rest in peace, buddy. You're listening to the Josh's Dartistry podcast. Don't forget you can check us out on Facebook, the Josh's Dartistry page. You can also follow us on Twitter at Josh's Dartistry. And you can also go to our website, www.joshisdartistry.com, for all the latest news, blogs and information on the world of darts. Don't forget you can also call us and leave us a message on our voicemail box. That's 07739 738 329. That's 07739 738 329. Call our voicemail box, leave us a message, leave us a question, and we may play it on the show. Now back to the show.
Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry.
Okay, welcome back to the JDP. We're now going to move on to the Premier League. We just touched on it earlier, obviously the results at the Liverpool Echo Arena, and then obviously we had another night in Sheffield. We're going to concentrate now on the double header, which took place in the wonderful country of Holland, of course in Rotterdam, at the Ahoy Arena. 2 nights of action in Rotterdam. Obviously, we lost a night due to the bad weather and the snow. I think it was that in Exeter that was due to take place?
Yes, correct, John. Yeah, Exeter week 5.
And I think the Rotterdam venue was the only one that could sort of cater for 2 nights in a row, and that's why they decided to go with the double header. And in fairness, what an absolutely fantastic decision, because it brought us 2 nights of absolutely fantastic darts in Rotterdam. I think the opening shots of the crowd, Josh, the absolute, and people use the phrase time and time again, and I'm not afraid to use it now, and I don't make an apology for doing it, an absolute sea of orange, Josh.
It was absolutely fantastic. Like I say, this is the 3rd year now that the Premier League has gone to Rotterdam, and the atmosphere is just fantastic. I mean, it went to Berlin for the first time this year. That was the biggest in terms of venue, but I think in terms of the atmosphere, I think Rotterdam's the best they've been to in the Premier League. Fantastic.
10,000 sellout on both nights.
Exactly. I think the tickets for the Thursday, the initial night, was sold out in about 8 minutes, something ridiculous like that.
So, and it was nice to see dear old Dave at the start of the show as well. He was dressed in orange. He had his best orange shirt on both nights, so he was joining in with the fun and games on stage up there as well. So, yeah, an absolute sea of orange, and I'm sure we'll come on to the Dutch contingent very, very shortly. But up first on the Wednesday, we had Smith play Anderson, Josh.
Yeah, they met in the very first week of action, and Michael Smith came out on top on that occasion, coming from 5-1 down to beat Gary Anderson. The pair of very good friends. Gary Anderson mentors Michael Smith, but Gary Anderson was in fantastic form throughout the doubleheader in Rotterdam. He had 3 games, 2 in the first night, and kicked off with a 7-2 win over Michael Smith. Near 110 average from Anderson, 4 180, 70% on the doubles. Incredible display.
Yeah, I mean, Anderson took an early 2-0 lead. Smith was probably a little bit slower out of the traps. Anderson raced into a 4-1 lead and won 7-2 on double 9. Neil, any thoughts on that contest?
No, I thought Gary Anderson was outstanding. I think I said last time that he's one that can go toe to toe with Van Gerwen, and now he's over his back trouble. I think we're seeing him recapturing the form that led him to 2 World Championships. So I have a feeling that Smith is just about dropping off in the Premier League. I think he picked up points early on, even when he wasn't playing particularly well. But I think the top 3 of Anderson, Van Gerwen and Cross will be the big hitters if they're the 4 that make it through to the semi-finals.
It's interesting you say that about Smith, Neil, because at the start of the night, I know we had a double header, so we had obviously lots of matches throughout the week, but at the start of the night, it was Smith in 2nd place versus Anderson in 4th place.
Yep. Yeah, as I say, I think we're now seeing the cream rise to the top, if you like, and the big hitters in Van Gerwen, Anderson and Rob Cross hitting those top 3 positions. But I think Smith will survive, and I think he'll make that final 4.
So yeah, very good couple of days. We'll obviously touch on all of the results moving forward. Obviously, some people had a very, very good few days, but Gary Anderson started the whole doubleheader off in fine form, and he did continue that, which we'll touch on in a little while. Moving on, second game of the night was Rob Cross versus Daryl Gurney. Josh.
Yeah, again, Daryl Gurney played Rob Cross in Belfast, which was Gurney's homecoming. Gurney came out on top on that occasion, but it was a reversal again this time. Rob Cross winning 7-4. Cross stormed into a 5-0 lead. Gurney really didn't get out the gate quickly, but in fairness to Daryl, he really fought back well, took out 120, 138 finishes to make it back to 6-4. At one stage, I thought he was going to nick a point, but Cross held his nerve in the end, got over the line with a 96 average. Good solid display from Cross, not at his best, but still did enough to get the 2 points.
Josh, when I was watching it, I was watching Gurney very closely. I felt Gurney's first dart was pretty consistently poor.
Yeah, Daryl's one. I mean, you can say the same for all players, but Daryl's first dart is so important. When he gets that first dart in the treble 20, he's so prolific. And that, like you say, he was going a little bit low. He was having to switch to the 19s, which he doesn't particularly enjoy doing. So I think that was pivotal in his slow start. You're right.
Although Cross won the game, Neil, he did miss 2 match darts at double 16 when it was 6-2, and he also missed bullseye for the match at 6-3. So didn't have it all his own way.
No, he didn't. I think Daryl Gurney is a player that's really progressed over the last year or two. I remember when he first come onto the scene a couple of years back, and he seemed to get agitated by the crowd, and I think he's really learned to deal with that. And he's a tough competitor and difficult to beat, and it's the best players in the world that need to beat him. So
yeah, Cross nailed double 8 to win 7-4. as well as 2 ton plus finishes and four 180s, so a pretty consistent performance there. Moving on, match 3 of the evening. I'm sure Josh is going to take absolute delight in bringing us the report on this match. Raymond van Barneveld versus Simon Whitlock. Josh.
Yeah, Raymond van Barneveld took on Simon Whitlock in Raymond's homecoming in Rotterdam. Absolutely incredible reception from Raymond. He was almost in tears on his walk-on. It was just an incredible noise. As you said, the sea of orange. Raymond came into us on the back of 4 straight losses. He'd only won 7 legs in his last 4 matches, so in really, really poor form coming into this. But he rose to the occasion, as he so often does on home soil. 2
players in poor form, really, because Whitlock had won just 1, wasn't it? Drawn 2 and lost 2 of his previous 5 as well. So
yeah.
two players not in great form.
Simon, in fairness to him, has been a bit unfortunate. He's been unwell in the last couple of weeks. He pulled out of the previous weekend's European Tour due to illness, and I don't think he was firing on all cylinders throughout the double-header. But Raymond was in really good form, 101.44 average, 4 maximums. Went into a 3-0 lead, missed 3 darts at a double for a 4-0 lead, and I thought that may be costly at one point, but he looked really, really solid, really, really focused, and won the game with an 11-dart leg, so really good performance.
I think Whitlock is showing the signs now, and you'll see it in the results for the Thursday night, of being resigned to his fate. So we spoke a few weeks ago about Gerwyn Price had kind of given up the ghost a little bit. I think we're starting to see Simon resigned to his fate. Very good start in the tournament. Because I think, again, we touched on it last show, there was a bit of a surprise entrant into the Premier League, I think. But I think he's now beginning to fade and, as I say, resigned to his fate.
Yeah, he won his first 3 games, I think.
Yeah.
He was joint top with Michael Smith, but I think in his last 10 games now, he's picked up only 4 points. So he has fallen off the pace. He's now bottom of the league.
Yeah,
a little bit of credit to Whitlock. I thought he stayed in the game for as long as he could.
He did. It's not easy. Playing Raymond in Holland is a very difficult task, as we saw with Michael van Gerwen, which we'll touch on later on Thursday night. I thought Whitlock battled well in that game, just was punished for a slow start. Barney's one of the best front runners in the game of darts. When he goes into a lead, he very rarely lets it slip, so that's what was Whitlock's undoing, I think.
Before we move on and discuss the next match, we really must talk about the honesty of Mr. Raymond van Barneveld, Josh.
Yeah, fantastic touch. I mean, Paul Hinks, in the second leg of the game, Raymond, threw a 1-2-3, but Paul Hinks thought it was a 180. I must admit, I was watching it at the time, and I thought at first when he called a 180, I thought that's in the treble 1.
Well, I was a bit confused. I wasn't too sure what was going on, because at Barney's next throw, he approached the scorer and had a conversation. At first thought, I thought he was complaining about Whitlock's conduct when he was stepping away from the oche and walking too close to the throne, but it wasn't that at all.
No. I mean, I saw Raymond, when Paul Hinks called 180, Raymond looked quite surprised. He turned around to look at the scoreboard, looked a little bit confused, but he didn't want to disrupt Whitlock's throw and approach Paul Hinks at the time, so he waited until Whitlock had thrown and gone past and then informed him. So a really good touch. I mean, that's what we want to see, good sportsmanship.
Just looking at my notes from Wednesday night when I was sitting down watching, it was interesting that after the Barney win, pyro was used. Pyrotechnics, fireworks going off.
Oh, they loved it.
Sparks flying. There was a real. They really, pulled out all the stops for Barney in front of his home country. I thought that was an absolutely fantastic touch to add in a bit of pyro for Barney. He very much enjoyed that. Moving on to the next game, Peter Snakebite Wright played Michael van Gerwen. Josh.
Yeah, we mentioned, John, in the last game about sparks flying, and they certainly flew in this one. Peter Wright against Michael van Gerwen. Peter beat Michael in week 2, and incredibly, he did the double over him on home soil. That's the first time since Michael van Gerwen's played in the Premier League in his 6th year now that he's been beaten twice in the same season. Fantastic performance from Peter Wright. So clinical on the doubles, 70%. Michael averaged 106.87. Which is over 7 points higher than Peter Wright. But Michael was 4-1 down, got it back to 4-all. I think with some fantastic, 5-all through.
5-all, yeah.
Yeah, 5-all with some fantastic finishing. But then he slipped, I think, in the last leg on his own throw. He was on 60 after 18 darts, which is unheard of for Van Gerwen. And Wright took full advantage and defied the Partizan home crowd to come out on top.
It'll be interesting when we look back a little bit later in the Premier League predictions to see how many people predicted that result.
Not many.
I think, there was no indication of what was to come. Michael van Gerwen, he pulled out an 11 darter to level at 1-all, and at that stage, it was all to play for, and probably most people, including myself, were leaning towards another comfortable Van Gerwen victory, but didn't prove to be the case, Neil.
No, it was a shock. Let's be honest. I
wouldn't call it a shock. I mean, Peter Wright is world number 2, in fairness to him.
Yeah, and it's not the first time he's done it to him in the Premier League season.
No, exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
Surprise, I'd say.
I think when I talk about a shock, I think once it got to 5-5 at one stage.
Yeah, he was 5-2 up, and then it was 5-5.
He did pull it back to 5-5, and then you think, oh, Van Gerwen's just going into overdrive here. But Wright showed good character,
definitely,
and got over the line, and it 70% on doubles, and I think that looking at the stats, that was the difference on the night.
Yeah, it's combinations. He took out a 98 treble 20 double 19 for 3-1, then an 84. Double 11 last start to go 4-1 up, and that was the difference. Those clutch finishes.
Yes, a fantastic entertainment there, and a surprise result, which is always nice to see. The final game of the evening featured two players who'd obviously previously played and were playing twice on the evening. Rob Cross, Josh, he faced Gary Anderson. Yeah,
it's always quite interesting when players come back for the second game of the evening. I always feel a lot of it depends on the outcome of the first game. Obviously, both of them had registered wins, but Gary Anderson was far more impressive in his win against Michael Smith, and Rob Cross took out a 1-4-4 on the opening leg, started really strongly, but then Gary just put on the afterburners, took out 3 ton-plus finishes in successive legs, 104, 120, 117. Also missed double 12 for a 9-darter, which would have been absolutely incredible. The roof would have gone off the Ahoy Arena, but didn't quite hit the 9-darter, wired the double 12. But fantastic performance from Gary, near 100 average, 3-180, 64% on the doubles, and a fantastic night's work for the two-time Premier League champion.
I think he thought that double 12 was in.
He was walking
after it, wasn't it?
Well, it's interesting that the talk about the double 12 for the 9-darter. That turned up in the eighth leg, and it wasn't until we got to the 8th leg that we had our first 180 of that particular match.
It's incredible. I mean, they're both so prolific on the 180s, particularly Anderson. So it's a surprise, but he's a rhythm player. So when he gets in that zone, he's very, very hard to stop, as we saw throughout the doubleheader.
So yeah, that concludes the results for the Wednesday night in Rotterdam, and we were very, very fortunate that 24 hours later, back on our television screens, we had night 2 in Rotterdam, and opening up the second event of the week was Simon Whitlock versus Smith, Josh.
Yeah, Simon Whitlock versus Michael Smith. It started really, really sluggishly. Both players were averaging in the 70s after 3 legs. Simon won the first leg, but then Michael Smith just blitzed him. 7 straight legs, took out a 160 finish in the third leg, which was a highlight. Won the game with an 86 finish on the bullseye. Good performance from Smith. 97.46 average, 6 maximums. Really, really good scoring display. Also 50% on the doubles. Just completely outscored Whitlock, who really didn't get a sniff for much of the game.
Neil, what did you make of the Whitlock performance?
I wasn't shocked by the result. I think I was shocked by the margin of victory, to be honest. So, as we said, Simon's not been at his best last few weeks, but I didn't see a 6-leg margin in that. So, well done, Michael Smith.
Okay, moving on. The match that I thought was going to be match of the night, and it might have been a bit naive on my part with the Dutch contingent coming up a little bit later, but a bit of a surprise this one. I thought it'd be a little bit closer than it actually turned out to be. Daryl Gurney faced Anderson next, Josh.
Yeah, fantastic performance from Gary Anderson again. 109.73 average. He already averaged 109 in his game against Michael Smith the previous night, and he was just fantastic. I mean, 5 maximums, 70% on the doubles again. And I think the highlight of the game came in the third leg, I think it was. Daryl hit a 180 to leave 65. Gary responded by taking out a 170 on the bullseye, second 170 finish of the tournament. Fantastic performance from Anderson. He's now had 3 averages in excess of 109 in this tournament. He's one to watch, certainly.
Okay, moving on then. Rob Cross then played Peter Snakebite Wright, and they fought that one out to a draw, Josh.
Yes, it was a really big game for both players. I mean, Rob Cross, I think if he'd have won the game, he'd have been mathematically assured to have been finished above Peter Wright. I think Peter's got a slight chance of overhauling him on legs difference, I believe. But Rob Cross led 5-2, looked in command, was really solid on his throw for much of the game. But Peter Wright fought back brilliantly well, won 4 of the final 5 legs to snatch a draw. The averages weren't anything to write home about. Cross 96.4, Wright 92.22, but good solid performance from Peter Wright. Showed a lot of character, as Neil said. He showed a lot of character against Michael van Gerwen the previous night, and he did the same against Rob Cross.
I think he's now someone over these final few weeks that if you're trying to get in that top 4, you wouldn't want to play, because he did have a slow start. He had some bad results early on, but now he is a tough cookie, and as world number 2, that's what you'd expect. So anyone that's got Peter Wright over the last few weeks won't be necessarily looking forward to that battle.
No, I think Peter Wright, I think he's still mathematically able to make the playoffs, but it's going to be very, very unlikely. But what I will say is I think he may finish 5th, looking at the league table and the fixtures, because the 4 players he's already played twice are Michael van Gerwen, Gary Anderson, Rob Cross and Raymond van Barneveld.
Yep.
His 3 remaining games are against Smith, Whitlock and Gurney. So on paper, not the toughest of fixtures compared to some of the other players.
No, I think you're right. So it'd be interesting to see how he does against Michael Smith, because that game could be pivotal. It looks like Smith will make it.
Yeah, I think he will.
But I'm sure the game against Wright will be tough.
Yeah, definitely.
Again, as I cast my eye over the predictions that we had come in from the JDP listeners, I found it interesting that Cross versus Wright, the 6-6 draw, was quite a popular choice, Neil, with a lot of our listeners. A lot of people couldn't really separate them.
No, and I think that, again, that's a sign of Peter Wright's improvement in Premier League matches over recent weeks. Because I think, Rob Cross is the world champion. He's in reasonable form, and with Wright improving, I guess that's why a lot of people saw the draw coming.
What darts was Peter Wright using this weekend? Josh, was there any changes that you noticed?
He changed from the previous week in Sheffield, but he used the same darts on both Wednesday and Thursday, and he threw really well with them. They're the darts he's had most success with throughout his career. And I know he made a joke in his interview after beating Michael van Gerwen that his wife Jo had been nagging him to stick with these darts. But as he said himself, he gets bored. Even when he's winning and playing well, he gets bored and he likes to experiment. But if he just sticks with these darts, he's going to get more consistent, more confident. He's going to be a real danger.
Okay, moving on, and let's be honest, the next match of the night was not only the highlight of the night, but the highlight of the week for everybody really in Rotterdam. Michael van Gerwen versus Raymond van Barneveld.
Yeah, huge match between these 2 Dutch legends. It was more than just about league tables in terms of this game. I mean, Raymond, if he would have won the game, he'd have kept his hopes alive, which he did. But I think Raymond realistically knows it's going to be very difficult to qualify. This was about pride. This was about showing the world, and obviously Michael, that he's still got it, and he's still able to produce the goods, and he did that fantastically in Rotterdam. Michael actually averaged over 8 points more than Raymond, 103.7 compared to Raymond's 95, but Raymond broke in the first leg, was really solid on his throw. I mean, to lead from the outset against Michael van Gerwen takes some doing, because Michael, we saw against Peter Wright the way he came back in that game. He just fires in 11, 12 darters at will when he needs them. But I think Michael struggled with the atmosphere. Raymond had the lion's share of support. I'd say almost 90% of the support in Rotterdam, which I was a little bit surprised about.
Why do you think that is?
Well, Michael van Gerwen's the world number 1. There's no doubt and he's the best Dutch player at the moment. But Raymond put darts on the map in the Netherlands. He is a legend. And also I think there's a little bit of the underdog element. We all love an underdog. And in darting terms, when Michael plays Raymond is the underdog.
Yeah, I was almost as interested in the sort of crowd reactions and what was going on around the hockey as much as I was that what was actually taking place, Neil.
Yeah, it was an interesting atmosphere for the players to play in, and I think you look at the averages. Van Gerwen 103 to Barney's 95. Look at the doubles. Van Gerwen again superior, 56%. To Barney's 39. So I think what that's telling us is that Barney did things at key times to get the job done. And he has this incredible knack of being out of form, but at the right time, when it's really needed, digging deep and pulling something special out. And I think, considering his form of the last 3 weeks, I think his performance was fabulous.
Oh yeah, I mean, I referenced it. I wrote a blog post this morning talking about Raymond and the fact that he relishes a big occasion, and he does. His 3 favourite tournaments are the World Championship, the Premier League and the World Cup, and it's no secret he's had most success in those tournaments over the last few years. And I think this was the perfect time for Raymond to have this Rotterdam double-header. He's been really out of form, really struggling for confidence. And how can you not be inspired when you're playing in front of such an incredible crowd? And he rose to the occasion. And as you said, in terms of the doubles percentages, they don't really tell the whole story. Because yes, Michael was 56% compared to Raymond's 39%, but I don't think any of Raymond's misses were particularly important. I think the second leg he missed 5 at double, but Van Gerwen still didn't have a shot in that leg. So, as you said, he took out, I think, a 64 finish, 68, some really, really key finishes with last dart in hand. He held his nerve fantastically well.
I think just touching on Van Gerwen as well, I was watching one of the Euro Tour events. I think it was Euro Tour 3 or 4.
3, yeah.
and it almost became a little bit too easy for him.
Showboating.
It was a little bit, and he was going for surprising finishes. It was almost like he'd got bored and things had become too easy. And I think he played Peter Wright in the final. And it was
that's Euro Tour 2, yeah.
It was a strange game because he was going for all sorts of fancy finishes, and then Peter Wright started to do the same thing. Van Gerwen won the tournament in the end, but there almost seemed to be a little bit of complacency just creeping into his game. And I think, over the past few days, he's had a couple of shock results.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I don't think that complacency was an issue against Peter Wright or Raymond, to be honest, because they're two players he knows are capable of beating him. But I think it must be difficult. I mean, Mark was on home soil. He's a world number one. I'm sure he'd have been expecting a fair amount of support, but as we mentioned, it was a sea of orange. I didn't spot many green shirts in the crowd.
No, that's true.
There's one or two, but I don't think, certainly majorly outweighed by everything else.
Oh, definitely. It was a fantastic atmosphere, fantastic game for Dutch darts. As I said, it may be in vain in terms of Raymond's playoff hopes. He had a double header in Sheffield where he lost to both Darryl Gurney and Peter Wright. He was really out sorts Raymond that night, and that could prove to be his undoing. But I think that was almost insignificant in terms of the actual Rotterdam double header. It was a fantastic moment for him, and he said after beating Michael, one of the best nights of his career. Fantastic game.
Okay, so after the merriment of that match, quite literally taking our breath away, we moved on to the final match of the night. The night concluded with Darryl Gurney versus Simon Whitlock, Josh.
Yeah, a bit of a after the Lord Mayor show, this one. Darryl Gurney against Simon Whitlock in a repeat of last year's World Grand Prix final. Simon, in his opening match, lost 7-1 to Michael Smith. Darryl lost 7-3 to Gary Anderson. But Whitlock suffered his second 7-1 drubbing of the night, really out of sorts. Gurney stormed into a 4-0 lead. Whitlock got a leg back on double one, but that didn't spark any sort of fight back. Gurney was impressive, 99 average, 3 180s, 50% on the doubles. Whitlock missed a few key doubles early on, but only an 85 average, which is just not going to cut it. But in fairness to Simon, as I said, he's been unwell the last couple of weeks, and I think that's really derailed his campaign, and he's now 8th in the table, and I think he's out of contention for a playoff spot now.
So yeah, that concludes the results. Where does that thinking of sort of maybe looking at the league table now and the remaining nights that we've got in the Premier League, where does it leave us, Josh?
We've got 3 nights now remaining before the playoffs. We go to Manchester next week, then we finish off with Birmingham and Aberdeen. I think personally the top 4 as it is now is pretty set. We've got Michael van Gerwen leading the way on 18 points. Gary Anderson and Rob Cross are on 17 but have played a game more than Michael van Gerwen. And then Michael Smith is in 4th on 16 points, but he has a game in hand on both Anderson and Cross. There's a 3-point gap between Michael Smith and Darryl Gurney. Gurney sits in 5th, but he played a game more than Michael Smith. So for Gurney to overtake Smith or Raymond van Barneveld, who's in 6th, to overtake Smith, they're going to need to win virtually all of their last matches and hope that other players do them a favour. I think it'll take something extraordinary to see any of those top 4 miss out, but it's just what order they finish in.
Knowing what we know now, and obviously we can sit here in hindsight, which is very easy to do, and we've got the league table in front of us now. Thinking about who we've lost already, Gerwen and Mensah, and looking towards the bottom end of the table, do you think that all the Premier League picks for this year, whether they were automatic picks or wildcards, are we happy with the justification of all the players that are involved, or are the performances perhaps suggested that other players may have well been a better pick for the competition?
In fairness, when the picks were announced, the only 2 I had question marks over were Simon Whitlock and Michael Smith. I mean, Gerwin Price has underperformed hugely in the Premier League, which he's accepted. But to be fair to Gerwin, since he's fallen out of the Premier League, he's actually got his form back, and he reached 2 TV finals last year, the UK Open and the World Cup, so he deserved his place. It just didn't happen. In terms of Michael Smith, he didn't have the best years on TV. He won a European Tour event, but he's proved everyone wrong. He's had a fantastic tournament. I think he's virtually a certainty to be in the top 4. Simon, he's fallen by the wayside a little bit in recent weeks, as we've mentioned, but he started off really well, being really tenacious, really determined, and I think he's deserved his spot, and I think he's merited it. There's a few players who may have had cases, the likes of Adrian Lewis, Dave Chisnell, James Wade, dropped out from last year, but neither of those 3 players had any good 2017s. I don't think they particularly deserved their spot based on their form last year, although James Wade has really come back to form in 2018.
Neil, 12-13 games down across the Premier League. Long way to go still. We've still got a lot of darts to come before we eventually crown our champion. But at this stage, Neil, any particular highlights for you across the Premier League season so far?
I think the Rotterdam double night special has been the highlight for me. I think we've seen some fantastic games. Another favourite of mine was the Cross Gurney game, which I think was in Belfast.
Yeah, Gurney's homecoming, fantastic game.
So Cross playing with the crowd, and I think it was a really good game. But I think at the moment the highlight has been the Rotterdam events.
Okay, well that concludes our Premier League roundup for the doubleheader in Rotterdam.
I feel happy, won't you call me on the telephone? In the morning, won't you call me on the telephone?
Call the boys on 07739 738 329. That's 07739 738 329 and leave them a message.
Okay, welcome back to the Josh's Dartistry podcast. Very excited now. We're going to move into an item that I spoke about earlier and a fantastic piece of audio. Josh managed to get an interview this morning with Rod Studd. Josh, tell us about that.
Yeah, really, really happy to speak to Sky Sports commentator Rod Studd. He's been at the Premier League throughout the season, as he has for a number of years now. I spoke with Rod about the Rotterdam doubleheader, the growth of darts. I mean, bearing in mind he started off commentating in 2009 and just how much the sport's grown over the last few years. We discussed the Premier League going forward, his picks for the rest of the season. Obviously discussed the Michael van Gerwen, Raymond van Barneveld spectacle in Rotterdam, what that meant for Dutch darts. And also, he also touched on the passing of Eric Bristow. Obviously, Rod was a colleague and a friend of Eric's for many years, and he spoke really movingly and glowingly about Eric Bristow.
Okay, so let's listen to the interview.
Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry.
I'm delighted to be joined by Sky Sports commentator Rod Studd to discuss this week's Premier League action in Rotterdam and the Premier League going forward. So, Rod, thanks very much for joining us this week.
It's a pleasure, Josh.
So, hopefully you were there in Rotterdam for the doubleheader this week. Just how much did you enjoy the past couple of days on Dutch soil?
Just absolutely fantastic experience. Obviously, I've been to Rotterdam twice before, but to do it as a doubleheader was even doubly good. Just really got to give it a big up to Matt Porter, the CEO of the PDC, and the rest of the PDC board there for making that decision, because they were left in a real dilemma when the Exeter event was postponed with the snow, and they had options of cramming in extra games or just abandoning those matches, and they made a really, really bold decision to play an extra night on the Wednesday night in Rotterdam to go with the Thursday night, and it just worked absolutely fantastically, and it was a brilliant experience.
And obviously, we know you've been heavily involved with rugby league in the past, but you've been commentating now on the darts since 2009, I think. But
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Since you became involved with the sport, could you ever have imagined it growing to the extent it has?
Well, it just keeps growing and growing, doesn't it? I mean, I'm old enough to remember, the original golden era of darts with Eric Bristow, Jockey Wilson, John Lowe, Bob Anderson in the 80s, and then the period when the split came in the 90s, and then there was a period when there was nobody watching darts, and it wasn't fashionable. And to see it as it is now is just absolutely incredible, and it just shows no sign of stopping, Josh, does it? Really, to sell 2 nights out with packed to the rafters in Rotterdam 2 nights is incredible, and on it goes, and long may it continue.
Oh, certainly. And obviously you mentioned there about, Jockey Wilson, Eric Bristow. Last month, very sadly, Eric Bristow passed away in Liverpool. You and Eric were colleagues at Sky Sports. What was it like to work and commentate alongside him, and just how significant has he been for the game of darts?
Yeah, just such a desperately sad night, Josh. It really was. It was such a shock for everybody at Liverpool when the news filtered through, and it was devastating, really. And Eric, just an incredibly larger than life character in his career, so flash and brash, and he played with unbelievable panache, and everybody that picked up a dart, I was a teenager in the 80s, and everyone who picked up a dart wanted to be Eric Bristow. Everyone threw with a little finger cocked to the side, to mimic Eric Bristow, and of course none of us could possibly do anything that he could do, but he would tell people he'd beat them, and then he would go on and beat them, and and he divided opinion in that regard, because some people didn't like that kind of cockiness, but I mean, I loved it. I thought he was fantastic, and then a great pleasure and a privilege to be on the Sky Sports team with Eric, and just as it was with Sid Waddell when I started working as well, to see and to work with people that you used to watch on the telly or hear on the telly in Sid's case was just such a thrill for me. So he loved to talk darts, he loved to play darts, he loved to be around darts. In the 80s, Eric Bristow was darts. And secretly, I think everybody wanted to be Bristow, even the other players. So just a desperately sad night in Liverpool. It really was, awful.
And in terms of just reflecting now back onto Rotterdam, you've been to so many venues across the UK and Europe now with the PDC, obviously Berlin this year. Where does Rotterdam rank in terms of atmosphere?
I think it could well be the best, Josh, to be honest with you. I mean, the Dutch fans, they turn up and, you'll have seen them on the television, and almost everyone is dressed in orange, and that creates a magnificent sight. And the sound that they make is absolutely going beyond the decibel scale. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, you can only imagine what it must be like to be Raymond van Barneveld in particular when he stands on that walkway and they're all singing Barney Army. I mean, the thrill he must get, knowing that almost everybody has come to watch him play and they're all singing his name. What a wonderful, wonderful feeling for Raymond. And, the atmosphere is such fun as well. It really is a happy-go-lucky party atmosphere. There's it's just a wonderful experience to be in there, just to stand and be in and amongst it. So I really hope that the PDC consider the double header again next year, because there's room to put it in, because as we all know at the moment, the back end of the Premier League, players have to play twice on the same night. And if they put an extra night in Rotterdam, and I hope that maybe have a chat about this, Barry Hearn and Matt Porter and the rest of the board there, and that would eliminate the last game at the end of the night. They won't have to play twice, and then enable them to get 2 nights in Rotterdam again. So we'll see what happens, but I'd love it to happen again in 2019.
No, that would be brilliant. And I mean, I think Barry Hearn tweeted earlier this week, because a lot of people have been saying about the possibility of trying to have a TV tournament in Holland.
Yeah.
But I think there could be some legal restrictions with betting, I think.
That's right. Yeah, that's absolutely right. You're spot on, Josh. Yeah, I mean, the problem is that the advertising of gambling isn't allowed in Holland. It's similar in a lot of other European countries. France, for example, with rugby league teams who've got a bookmaker sponsor, they can't play in those shirts when they play the Catalan Dragons in rugby league. So that's something that they'd have to work around. Obviously, you'll have noticed that the sponsor livery wasn't on the around the board in the nights in Rotterdam. So it's something that could work around, but it's not ideal for a TV tournament, because you've got to find other sponsors. As we know, most of the darts events are sponsored by bookmakers. The bookmaking industry is spending a lot of money on sponsoring sports events at the moment. So Barry and his team would have to find another sponsor. So we'll see how that goes, but it would be good. I know they've looked at Amsterdam, Josh, as well as a possible venue. So it's certainly blooming in Holland, isn't it?
Yeah, very exciting indeed. And in terms of obviously the double header in Rotterdam, Raymond van Barneveld against Michael van Gerwen was an obvious highlight. But what were your standout moments?
Well, that was just brilliant. I mean, and he does it, doesn't he? He's the whole Rocky Balboa van Barneveld. He keeps, rolling back the years and producing these brilliant performances, and that's why the fans love him so much, isn't it? Really. But I mean, that was one of the standout matches. But Gary Anderson, I mean, what a performance over 2 nights from Gary Anderson! Absolutely exceptional, wasn't it? 110 average against Michael Smith the first night when he played brilliantly, and then demolished Darryl Gurney with near enough 110 again, and then just under 100 in the Rob Cross game on the first night as well. And when he took out the 170 against Gurney, I just thought that was probably the best moment of the 2 nights. So Gurney hit a 180, put him under pressure, and he just said, "Yeah, all right, mate." Just took out the 170. So I thought that was brilliant. And he really, there's very few finer sights in darts than Gary Anderson playing at his best. It just makes it look so easy, doesn't it? It really is a pleasure to watch Gary playing well.
Oh, it certainly is. And you mentioned the Dutch derby between Barney and Van Gerwen. And I'm obviously you were in commentary with Wayne on that game, and you made the point that it's more about just than league tables. I mean, obviously Raymond can still qualify for the playoffs, but it was more than about trying to qualify for the playoffs. It was a huge game in the history of Dutch darts, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, them playing each other, the great old former champion, and that's why I say Rocky Balboa is like that. Coming back into the ring again, trying to take on a man that everyone knows is actually better than him and should beat him comfortably on all known form, but still somehow managing to find something from somewhere. And you just feel that it puts pressure on Michael, doesn't it? You can see Michael. I don't think Michael fancies playing Raymond at all. We know he's beaten him many times, but I don't think he enjoys it one iota, because he knows with the nostalgia thing, the fans are behind Barney. I think he just finds it really hard to play Raymond, and that reflects in the matches we see from time to time. He beat him in the Premier League last year in Manchester, beat him in Rotterdam. So it is more than just. I mean, 2 points on the league table. It didn't really matter. That wasn't about that at all, was it? It was about Barney saying, "Hey, mate, I'm still around and I can still beat you." And Michael knows that. So It'd be great to see them play next time again, maybe at the match play or something. And of course, they'll be playing together for the Netherlands in the World Cup as well. But it's a brilliant rivalry, isn't it?
Oh, it really is. Now, so you mentioned Michael maybe not particularly enjoying playing Raymond. Do you think Michael was surprised maybe by the level of support Raymond got? Because everyone was anticipating it being 50-50, but it certainly wasn't, was it?
Yeah, it might have surprised him. Yeah, obviously the night before Raymond got the bigger reception when they were playing other opponents, but I think it might have surprised him. I haven't spoken to Michael about it. I don't know if I don't know if there's anything there that Michael thinks. Well, I am actually the world number one, and I'm the best Dutch player. Should I be getting a better reception? But Barney's just so popular. It's not just in Holland where Barney's popular, is it? I mean, he's all over the world. It doesn't matter where Raymond van Barneveld turns up to play. I mean, they adore him wherever he is. Be it on England, Scotland, the Netherlands, all over the World Series. So. I think Michael commands the utmost respect as a darts player and as a sportsman and as a man. But it's just one of those things that Barney's just immensely popular.
And now looking ahead to the rest of the Premier League season, we've got 3 weeks before the playoffs. There's 3 points separating Michael Smith in 4th and Daryl Gurney in 5th. Do you think the top 4 is pretty set now? Are there more surprises in store?
Yeah, it does look pretty set, doesn't it? Michael Smith plays twice next week in Manchester because he plays Peter Wright and then he plays Michael van Gerwen. So, it's conceivable that he could lose both those matches, isn't it? And then Daryl Gurney, well, he's had to pick up points from somewhere. He's got a game against Michael van Gerwen to play as well. So, he'd probably have to win his other 2 games, which one is against Smith. So, if Gurney beats Smith, that puts the cat amongst the pigeons. So, obviously, the odds are it'll be Van Gerwen, Anderson, Cross and Smith, won't it? But there's just that chance if Gurney beats Smith, which is in the penultimate round of matches in Birmingham, then there is an outside chance. And I'm sure Michael Smith knows that. It's a bit of an odd one, really. If it was a football match, Michael Smith would be playing for a draw, wouldn't he?
Exactly, yeah.
It don't work that way in darts, does it? So we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting in Manchester because, say Smith plays twice, one of those is against Van Gerwen, and Gurney plays Van Gerwen as well. So, and Michael looking to bounce back after those 2 defeats. So, yeah, it'll be an interesting night in Manchester. And
looking ahead to the O2 Arena, I mean, who are you backing to lift the title? Gary Anderson's coming into some fantastic form, as you referred to earlier.
Yeah, well, if Gary, and we all know that sport doesn't work like this, is it? Because human beings don't play the same way every week. It's impossible. We're not robots. But if Gary Anderson turned up and played like he did in Rotterdam at the O2 Arena, then the rest of them better look out. Because you'd fancy him to beat anybody, wouldn't you, playing like that, even definitely. Van Gerwen. And we've already seen a magnificent game between Van Gerwen and Anderson in the Premier League in Newcastle when they both averaged 110 and Michael won and Gary had the 170 and Michael nearly had the 9-darter. So that would be a great final, wouldn't it? It ended up being something like that between Anderson and Van Gerwen. But, generally what we've seen is that, Van Gerwen has won 3, I think, out of 5 on finals night. So he generally hasn't been, foot perfect, has he, on those occasions? So I wouldn't say it's a certainty that Van Gerwen will go there and just mop up. And Rob Cross, well, we know what he can do on the big occasion. We saw him, beat Van Gerwen in the semi-final of the Worlds and then produce, one of the finest displays of darts I've ever seen in a big final to absolutely demolish Phil Taylor. So, you wouldn't rule him out either. Who was going to be 4th? I don't know. Michael Smith, probably. I think Van Gerwen and Anderson would be the ideal final, Josh, and may the best man win. Certainly, I think it should be, like I say, a fantastic conclusion to the Premier League, and I'm really looking forward to it. Rod, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it, mate, and look forward to hearing you on Sky Sports for the rest of the Premier League season. Absolutely. It's my pleasure, Josh, anytime. Many thanks, Rod. Thank you.
Josh is Dartistry. Josh is Dartistry. Josh is Dartistry. Josh is Dartistry.
Well, there you have it. A fantastic interview with Sky Sports commentator Rod Studd, and so a real interesting insight into the game, Josh.
Yeah, definitely, John. Really, really grateful for Rod for giving up his time to speak to me. Fantastic commentator, so knowledgeable about the game, and his enthusiasm is infectious, and I think that showed during the interview there. Some really interesting opinions, obviously very impressive from Gary Anderson in Rotterdam, as Rod mentioned. The Michael van Gerwen and Raymond van Barneveld game was obviously the obvious highlight for all the fans in Holland and us viewers watching. And I think his opinion, obviously, he wants to see an Anderson van Gerwen final. I think that's what a lot of the public want to see. Gary Anson and Marco van Gerwen, whenever they go toe-to-toe, it's always explosive.
You say that about what he wants to see in the final. Listening to Rod's interview there, not only does he come across, obviously, as a very knowledgeable guy when it comes to darts, but he comes across as a fan as well.
I think that's what all the best commentators do. I mean, you listen to someone like Wayne Mardles. Obviously, he's had a fantastic career as a player, now as a pundit. But Wayne's not just a darts analyst, a darts commentator, he's also a darts fan, and that's what makes it so enjoyable to listen to.
Yeah, so thanks to Rod for taking the time to speak to us on the Josh's Dartistry podcast. If you don't already, give Rod a follow on Twitter, Rod_stud. Give him a follow because he's genuinely, well, not only obviously very informative on darts, but some of the stuff he puts up on his Twitter feed is highly entertaining, to say the least. So once again, from all of us here on the Josh's Dartistry podcast, a very big thank you to Rod Stud.
You're listening to Josh's Dartistry. Don't forget, you can check us out on Facebook by going to the Josh's Dartistry page. You can follow us on Twitter @Josh's Dartistry or go to the website www.joshisdartistry.com for the latest news and insight to the world of darts. You can also leave us a comment or a question via our voicemail box. Just call 07739 738 329. Leave us a message and we may play it on air. Now back to the show.
Okay, welcome back to the show. We're now going to move on to discuss the recent Pro Tour and European Tour results.
So last weekend in Saarbrücken, we had the third European Tour event of the year, the German Darts Open, and it was a watershed moment for German darts, as Max Hopp became the first ever German player to win a PDC ranking title. He defeated Michael Smith 8-7 in an incredible final to lift the trophy in front of his adoring home fans. It was an incredible tournament. Max Hopp, he's been really struggling for the last 18 to 24 months, but over the last couple of weeks on the Pro Tour, he's really shown signs of a re-emergence, and he was fantastic throughout the tournament. Defeated 3 Premier League players, kicked off the tournament beating Austria's Zoran Lerchbacher, who's reached 2 Pro Tour finals in the last 12 months. Then defeated world number 2 Peter Wright in the second round, 6-4. Beat Benito van der Pas 6-4 in round 3. Benito reached the final here 12 months ago. Then defeated Joe Cullen 6-4 to reach the semis, where he met world champion Rob Cross. That's a really, really top-class game. Both players around the 100 average. Hopp in the deciding leg took out a 1-2-1 finish on the bullseye to win. And funnily enough, that's exactly the same finish he took out to win the tournament against Smith in another last leg decider. Hopp trailed 5-2 at one stage to Smith. Was struggling in the early stages, but Smith was punished for missing a number of key doubles in the midway stage of the match. Hopp fought back fantastically well. Brilliant win for Max Hopp and the sport of darts in Germany.
Yeah, I thought the semi-final against Cross had taken all it out of him, to be honest, and it was a very slow start, going 5-2 down, and then he just seemed to, put on the afterburners, and as you say, that 1-2-1 with a bullseye finish was fantastic.
Yep.
No, sorry to interrupt you. No coincidence that the Josh's Dartistry podcast, episode 1 that we did a couple of weeks ago, we were asked questions about Max Hopp, upcoming talent across Europe, and obviously Max Hopp is someone that we did touch on quite heavily in the last show, and then lo and behold, he goes and performs and does this in the tournament.
Yeah, I think I was saying on the podcast how he was out of form and hadn't been playing well for the last 18 months. In fairness, he hadn't, but I think he reached back-to-back quarterfinals in the previous 2 Players' Championship events, so he got a bit of confidence back, and he just seemed to be inspired throughout the whole weekend. He held his nerve superbly well. Obviously, the German crowd were fantastic, really roaring him on throughout the whole tournament, and he performed fantastically well. And we're being treated to another weekend of European Tour action at the moment as we speak. The Austrian Darts Open is taking place in Graz, and a few big-name absences. Michael van Gerwen pulled out on Thursday afternoon. Michael lost in the quarterfinals of the last European Tour event to Ian White, and that ended Michael's 20-match unbeaten run in European Tour events. Dave Chisnell's also pulled out in Austria due to illness, And Peter Wright has been knocked out as we speak this evening by James Wade, 6-4. Wade averaging 103. So that's put the cat amongst the pigeons, and it's really opened up the tournament heading into finals day tomorrow.
Who do you fancy, Josh?
I said if Wade beat Peter Wright in the second round, I'd fancy Wade. I mean, he'd reached the semi-finals in the first 2 European Tour events, and he's playing fantastically well. But Rob Cross, he wasn't at his best today. He survived 7 match darts actually against Steve West. But Rob has not won a title since winning the world title.
Yeah,
he may not get a better chance in the coming weeks because obviously there's no Van Gerwen, no Wright.
Why did Van Gerwen pull out, Josh?
I'm not too sure. He pulled out before the game against Raymond, so I don't think there was any influence on that result. But it's a very hectic schedule. Markle plays a lot of the events. I think perhaps obviously heading into the business end of the Premier League season, you may just want to kind of spend some time at home with the family, recuperate ahead of a busy period.
So you don't see a hometown winner in Austria?
Well, Mensah is definitely a candidate. I mean, obviously, he was eliminated from the Premier League a couple of weeks ago, and that has affected his participation on the Pro Tour. Mensah obviously has to travel a lot, living in Austria every week, and something had to give, so he skipped a lot of these Pro Tour events. But now he's been eliminated, he's playing much more frequently. He played really well throughout the whole Premier League, and we saw Max Hopp, a hometown winner in Saarbrücken. There's no reason why we can't see another one. Mensah's already won a European Tour title, so he could be a real danger this week, yeah?
Yeah, and he plays Cristo Reyes in the last 16 tomorrow.
Which isn't the toughest time. I mean, Cristo's coming into a little bit of form, beat Jelle Klassen today, but I think Mensah will be confident of reaching the quarterfinals for sure.
Yeah, agreed.
Gents, for those who might want to follow the Austrian Darts Open, is there any way that they can watch the games?
Yeah, I think if you've got a Bet365 account, the games are streamed on Bet365, or alternatively you can subscribe to the PDC's live channel. I think it's £50 for the year, is that right?
Yeah, I think it's £50 for the year or £4.99 a month.
Yeah, all the games streamed live, really fantastic. I'd recommend it for all those darts fans out there.
But if you don't, you can go to their website and it does list all the sites that will stream the tournament for you.
Okay, moving on. We had Players' Championship 7 and Players' Championship 8 fittingly taking place on April the 7th and April the 8th, Josh.
Yeah, the weekend before, obviously, the European Tour event in Saarbrücken. I mentioned about Max Hopp reaching back-to-back quarterfinals, and that was obviously the tournament he came back into form. But we mentioned Max becoming a first-time PDC senior title winner, and the same could be said for Mickey Mansell. We had a fantastic run to his first ever Pro Tour final on the Sunday, and in his first ever final, Producer Goods beating Adrian Lewis. It was an incredible day from Mickey Mansell, bearing in mind he's always been a good professional, good solid player, beating a lot of top players, but throughout the whole day in 7 matches he dropped just 11 legs. He whitewashed Kim Huybrechts in the first round, then whitewashed Gary Eastwood, then beat Alan Norris, Robert Thornton, Gerwyn Price, Josh Payne to reach the final, where he defeated Adrian Lewis. I mean, Adrian also reached the final of Saturday's event, where he lost out to Michael Smith, who picked up his second Pro Tour title of the year. So great weekend for Adrian Lewis in terms of £20,000 in his pocket. Will have been disappointed to lose both finals, but he's the player coming back into form. But yeah, I think real props to Mickey Mansell, because he's been a really good solid professional now for the last decade or so, and it's great for him to have his moment in the sun.
Yeah, some good performances in and around outside of the Premier League, and it's always a good place to watch some of the players who have perhaps been out of form and are obviously not included in the Premier League this year. People like, the likes of James Wade and Adrian Lewis to see how they're getting on and perhaps get a little look at them for the upcoming majors and also the World Championships. Yeah,
definitely. I think you've got to say fair play to both Adrian and James Wade. They had really poor 2017s. I don't think either player could really grumble that they were omitted from the Premier League, but they've both bounced back well. They haven't complained, they haven't moaned. They've just focused on trying to get their form back. Wade has been really, really good on the European Tour. Lewis has reached 2 Pro Tour finals, so the signs are encouraging for both of them. They've both got so much ability, and in darting terms, they're still both young men, both in their early 30s. So I've got no doubt they'll be bouncing back, and there'll be real threats at the upcoming major tournaments.
So outside of the Premier League, obviously we just discussed that the Austrian Darts Open is currently in progress with the final happening on Sunday evening. What else have we got coming up, Josh, outside of the Premier League?
We've got another set of Players' Championship events taking place in Wigan. We've got no Raymond van Barneveld, and then we've got, I think it's another European Tour event on the calendar the weekend after. I'm not quite sure where it's being held, but we'll find out.
Okay, well, safe to say there is plenty of darts action coming up, so keep your eyes glued onto the PDC website, and of course follow at Josh's Dartistry on Twitter. Go to Facebook, check out Josh's Dartistry, the Facebook page, and of course log on to www.joshisdartistry.com.
Josh's Dartistry, Josh's Dartistry. Dartistry, Josh Shields, Dartistry, Josh Shields, Dartistry.
Okay, it is now time for this. That's right, it is Josh's Crystal Ball. This is the point in the show where we like to give our predictions, as well as look back at the predictions that we've been sent in and see how you guys have got on taking us on. What we like to do is we give our predictions on each Premier League night. We invite the JDP listeners to also compete against us. Now, how that works is we select one person at random. We've got a random number generator that we use to pick that person, and that person represents the JDP listener in the league table. We also look at all of the submissions from you guys, and we have a weekly winner who whoever wins that is the proud recipient of the brand new Josh's Dartistry mug. Now, if you've been on Twitter, you'll have probably seen a picture of the mug. So we're going to cross over to Neil now, who's going to tell us how we fared on Judgment Night. Neil.
Okay, week 1, which was Judgment Night. The overall winner was myself with...
Boo.
Congratulations, Neil.
Thank you, with 12 points. I'm kicking myself that I didn't back myself with my correct score bets, as I normally do. I would have won a few quid. Unfortunately, I didn't back it. So, I won the first week. The listener who scored the highest number of points was at DartsFan7.
Many congratulations.
Well done, who scored 7 points. And if you can get in contact with us and send us your address, we do want to send your JDP mug all the way to Holland.
Who's paying the postage on that?
You.
Fantastic. Okay, so that concludes Judgment Night picks. We move on to the following week. What happened with Sheffield, Neil?
Sheffield was won on 5 points by the JDP listener that was randomly selected that week, who is at Animal_115. Well done, Animal.
Friend of the show, Animal. Many congratulations.
The winner of the JDP mug with 6 points is at Katie Dean 2014, who is also John's wife.
Oh dear
Fix.
me.
Carve up.
I feel a steward's inquiry coming. Listen, she's over the moon. She's received the mug. She's very, very happy. She's not as happy anymore because of the results from Holland. She's a big Michael van Gerwen fan. But yeah, the fact that she won the prediction league that week, she's very happy, and a happy wife makes me very happy. So congratulations, darling.
Well done, Katie. Okay, moving on. We've combined weeks or set of results 3 and 4, which were the Rotterdam Wednesday and Rotterdam Thursday matches. The winner was myself.
Oh.
With a very healthy 8 points.
Josh, we're never going to catch him. You know that.
He might buckle. Liverpool slipped up a few years ago when they were in the top.
Whee!
Literally.
Let's not go there, please.
Oh.
And the listener with the highest number of points, 9 points, is Colin Church, who's also our musician. And coincidentally, is also John's father-in-law.
Well, this is just getting embarrassing now because 2 of my family members have won the mugs, and people are going to think this is all a bit of a fit-up, really, surely.
Disgrace. It's a disgrace.
Anyway,
Can we look at the league table?
I'd rather not. Colin, we'll be getting your mug. We'll be getting your mug, whisking it over to you very, very shortly, so you can have a nice cup of tea while you're coming up with our next jingle. Yeah, go on, Neil. Give us a league table.
Okay, so we'll go in reverse order. In 4th place with 11 points is John.
A creditable 11 points, I think.
I'm not sure I'd go that far. Okay, in 3rd place with 13 points is our resident expert, Josh.
How you feeling about that, Josh?
I like to give you all a chance, don't I? I'll come good at the latter stage of the season. I'll come good.
Bit like Barney.
Well, he's already coming good.
In 2nd place with 14 points is the JDP listeners. Well done.
Well done, the listeners.
And with a 10-point gap, clear at the top is myself with 24 points.
So let's surmise. Around this table, Neil knows the most about darts.
Correct.
The Josh's Dartistry podcast listener knows the second most amount about darts.
Correct.
Josh Gorton, our resident expert, is in third position. And I am sitting at the bottom of the league. Yeah. So anyway, that's the results from the last 3 rounds of Premier League picks. We're now going to move on and look ahead to next week. Premier League, as we mentioned earlier, coming all the way from Manchester. We have 5 games, obviously. Night 14, and we begin, Josh, with Peter Wright versus Michael Smith.
Shouldn't we let our resident expert Neil over here go first?
Okay. Peter Wright hitting form. 7-5 Peter Wright.
Josh.
Tough game this, because Michael Smith, if he loses, is under a little bit of pressure. I think it's going to be tight. I am going to sit on the fence and go for a 6-all draw.
I fancy Peter Wright to win this. He's getting stronger and stronger and stronger now, and I've gone the same way as Neil. I've gone Peter Wright 7, Smith 5. Next game is Daryl Gurney versus Michael Van Gerwen. Josh.
Michael Van Gerwen is going to be a wounded animal after losing back-to-back nights in Rotterdam. Gurney still in with a chance of the playoffs, but I can only see Van Gerwen coming out a winner here. He's had the weekend off in Austria to prepare for this. I am going Michael Van Gerwen to win 7-3.
Okay, over to you, Neil.
I agree with Josh. I think we'll see a return to form of the world number 1, 7-3 MVG.
Yeah, and I've picked 7-3 to MVG as well, so all in the round there. Don't give me daggers from across the table. Listen, I wrote mine down 20 minutes ago. Look, there they are on the sheet. I'm not copying anybody.
Yeah, I wrote mine down half an hour ago and then left the room.
Right,
I've made mine up as we go.
You're top of the league.
Yep.
Pipe down.
10 points clear.
Okay, next match up. Let's go to Neil first. Simon Whitlock versus Gary Anderson. What you got?
As I said earlier, I think Whitlock is kind of resigned to his fate. I think we've seen some excellent form from Gary over the past few weeks, and I've gone 7-2 to Gary.
So have I. Josh?
Shock.
I haven't seen any of your predictions, and I was going to go for the same, but I can't. I'm going to say Gary Anderson beats Simon Whitlock 7-4.
Okay, right, I'm going to go first on this one to stop me being accused of all sorts of nonsense. Next game is Raymond van Barneveld versus Rob Cross. I can't separate them. I've gone for a 6-all draw. Neil?
To spite Josh, I'm going Rob Cross 7-5.
Controversial. Josh?
This is a tough one. They've met 4 times in the past, and Rob Cross has won on every single occasion. Barney, maybe a little bit of a come down for Raymond, obviously leaving Rotterdam. He'll still get a lot of support in Manchester. I'm going to sit on the fence and say 6-all draw here.
Okay, and then we move on to the last match of the night. The 2 guys who are playing twice, Michael Smith versus MVG. Just looking at my notes, I can't see anything other than a Van Gerwen win. Pretty comprehensive. I'm going for Smith 4, Van Gerwen 7. Neil, what you got?
Smith 3, Van Gerwen 7.
Josh?
I think how the first game goes will have a big impact on both players, but Van Gerwen has always had a lot of success in the past in double headers. I think he's actually going to run out a 7-2 winner here against Michael Smith.
Okay, so pretty comprehensive wins for Van Gerwen for the last match of the night. That concludes our Premier League picks, and that concludes this week's episode of Josh's Crystal Ball. Don't forget, we really, really want to hear from you guys, the JDP listener. You can compete alongside us. We randomly select one of you who sent in your answers to compete with us and represent the JDP listener in the league table, and whoever gets the most points out of all the submissions is the winner of the new Josh's Dartistry mug. So don't forget, you can get in contact with us. You can follow us on Twitter at Josh's Dartistry. You can check out the Josh's Dartistry Facebook page, and you can also go onto the Josh's Dartistry website. That's www.joshisdartistry.com. Talking of social media, you can also follow me on Twitter. My personal account is at Deanzy. That's DEANZEY. And Neil's personal Twitter account is at 10_chief1. So that's at 10_chief1. That's the number one. So if any of you guys want to follow us on Twitter, you are more than welcome.
Hi, this is Rod Stud from Sky Sports, and you're listening to Josh's Dartistry podcast.
Okay, it's now time for this.
Cool, what are the odds?
Okay, let's throw it over to our resident odds expert, Mr. Neil Connor. Neil, what you got for us this week?
Okay, so we've had our Premier League picks. So let's look at the odds for the matches next week in the Premier League. Peter Wright versus Michael Smith. Peter Wright is 11-10 with Paddy Power. All these odds are from Paddy Power. Michael Smith 17-10, and the draw 3-1. That could be an interesting bet. Moving on. Daryl Gurney versus Michael Van Gerwen. Gurney is a big 6-1.
That's huge.
It is, but I think the bookies like us are expecting the resurgent Michael Van Gerwen this week after his weekend off and his bad form in Rotterdam.
Yeah, Josh used the term "wounded animal" earlier. I think that could be. I think that really could be the case, or it could not be the case, and he might be on a bit of a downward spiral.
I don't think I've ever seen Michael Van Gerwen lose 3 consecutive Premier League games. I'm not saying it can't happen, but anything can happen in this Premier League. Raymond van Barneveld was a 7-1 shot against Van Gerwen last week. We all saw what happened there. So never write Gurney off. He's got the ability. And
let's not forget Van Gerwen's playing twice as well. So the pressure's on in 2 big games, really.
But Paddy Power, very strong on Van Gerwen, 3-10 for him to take Gurney out, with the draw at 9-2.
Okay, the Wizard Simon Whitlock up against the Flying Scotsman Gary Anderson. What you got, Neil?
Again, heavy favourite. Gary 1-3 with Paddy Power to win. The Wizard Simon Whitlock 11-2. Again, big odds. And the draw 9-2. So again, very heavy favourite with Paddy Power, Gary Anderson.
What do you fancy in that, Josh? I know you've given us your pick, but how do you see that one panning out?
I mean, early in the season, I predicted Simon Whitlock to get relegated, and he proved me wrong emphatically. He produced some really good performances, but in Whitlock and against Anderson, you've got the form player in the league against the player most out of form. Whitlock's lost his last 4 matches now, winning just 6 legs in the process, so he's in woeful form. Anderson, by comparison, won his last 4. I can only see one winner here, if I'm honest.
Okay, Neil, tell me about Raymond van Barneveld versus Rob Cross.
The standout here is Josh's prediction of the draw, 10-3, which I think offers some really good value. Rob Cross 8-11, and RVB 13-5. So nice odds for RVB, nice odds for the draw. And Josh, if you want to back the draw, it's 10-3.
Good odds.
Those odds for Barney must have shifted massively after his heroics in Rotterdam. I think had he had a couple of not bad results, but maybe not got both the wins across Rotterdam, I think that you would have seen a much larger odds from the bookies for Raymond van Barneveld. Last match of the night, Michael Smith in his second game against Michael Van Gerwen in his second game. Neil.
Again, Van Gerwen heavily fancied by Paddy Power. Same odds as the Daryl Gurney game, so 3-10 for Van Gerwen to take out Smith. Michael Smith, a very large 6-1, and the draw 9-2. So Gurney and Smith, both tough competitors for Van Gerwen, but outsiders with the bookies.
Yeah, tough competitor, but 6-1 for Smith again. For those of you that didn't see the Peter Wright and the Raymond van Barneveld victories against Michael Van Gerwen, if, as I mentioned before, if you like me and you like a bit of value, I think that might be your bet.
Yeah, Michael Smith, to be fair to him, obviously he's lost 2 of his last 3 games, but before that he whitewashed Raymond van Barneveld 7-0, and he's playing really well on the European tour. He's already beaten Van Gerwen in a UK Open qualifier this year, so don't write Michael Smith off.
I think he's one of those players, when he gets in the zone, that can get a real run going.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, 6-1. I still fancy MVG.
I do as well, but it could be worth a punt if you like a bit of value.
Absolutely. Okay, so moving on to the winner of the Premier League. Not too much movement in these odds. Again, the world number one, Michael van Gerwen, still odds on at 4-7 to win the Premier League. No real movement since the last show. Gary Anderson 4-1 and Rob Cross 5-1. Michael Smith now 14-1 with Gurney 40-1, Peter Wright 50-1, and the two outsiders RVB at 66-1 and Simon Whitlock a very large 150-1.
Excellent stuff. Okay, so that's Premier League.
I've got one more.
Go.
One more bet. So Gary Anderson, as we know, wired a 9-darter on double 12 on Wednesday night. If you fancy there will be a 9-darter before the end of the tournament, it's 5-4 for there to be and 8-13 for there not to be.
Let's be honest, we need a 9-darter. I mean, I was on the edge of my seat the other night when he missed double 12, and I was thinking back to how long it had been since we'd seen a 9-darter in the Premier League, Josh.
Yeah, the last two 9-darters in the Premier League have been hit by a man who's not in it this year, Adrian Lewis. He hit one last year against Rami van Barneveld, year before against James Wade. It's amazing we haven't had one yet when you consider the likes of Van Gerwen, Anderson, Smith. They're so prolific on the 180s, but we could see one, but the pressure's getting on a lot of players now. We're getting to the crunch point of the season, and that's when a lot of players can tighten up. That's when the nerves creep in. Mm-hmm. So I think it could be tough. Someone like Peter Wright, for example, who may start to relax now. His Premier League playoff hopes are nearly over. He could be one who just rises to the occasion, not a lot of pressure on him. He could produce it. But 5-4 is quite short with only 3 weeks left.
Yeah, I agree. So 8-13 if you think there won't be a 9-darter.
It's interesting the conversation I hear around people who are close to the players, both on social media and in person. You do hear it said a lot. They hit a lot of 9-darters in practice. Yep. I do hear that phrase mentioned quite a lot. So it's quite interesting that it doesn't always. Don't get me wrong. I don't expect them in every game and night after night. But it's quite interesting that just recently that hasn't converted itself into the live stage. Yeah,
you see, obviously following the pro tours. European tours. Well, there hasn't been one on the European tour for over 5 years now, which is incredible. But a lot of the Players' Championship events, the floor events, you see almost one hit every weekend now. They hit so regularly. So, yeah, I think the last one on TV has not been hit for quite a while. So, listen, with the quality you've got in this year's Premier League, the prolific 180 hitters, there can definitely be a 9-darter. But we might have to wait a little bit longer, I think, for that one.
OK, Neil, anything else odds-wise?
Just a couple of things that caught my eye with Sky Bet in their request to bets market. Adrian Lewis to win a major in 2018. I know Josh mentioned him earlier, and his two runners-up performances at the Players' Championship. 6-1 to win a major before the end of 2018.
Not bad at all.
No, not bad. I mean, Adrian, he hasn't had the best of 2017s, but he started the year well. But there's so many players now that are capable of winning majors. You've got the likes of Van Gerwen, obviously Anderson, Rob Cross, Peter Wright, Barney. It's going to be tough, but Adrian, he's definitely got the talent. Listen,
former world champion, that's not to be sniffed at. I always think anyone who's got a CV, such as the likes of Lewis, is in with a shout at any major that they attend.
Definitely.
And the other one that caught my eye, two up-and-coming Premier League players, Daryl Gurney and Michael Smith, both to win a major in 2018, 16-1.
Well, Darryl won one last year, the World Grand Prix, and Michael Smith, to be fair, the way he started this year, you wouldn't put it past him. No. So, yeah, that's a decent
value, I think.
OK, so that is our odds section. If you do fancy a little gamble, then Neil's picks for the upcoming weeks. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, with regards to the odds section and any gambling, we do advise you to gamble responsibly. And, of course, gentlemen, when the fun stops, stop.
Cool, what are the odds?
OK, it's now time for my favourite part of the show. Challenge Josh. That's right, it's time for Challenge Josh, our eagerly anticipated section. Josh, the pilot episode that we did, I thought you did very well on the questions regarding those who formed the breakaway PDC in 1993. I thought you performed very, very well, and from the people that I've spoken to, they were quite impressed by you. I think you got 11, was it, Neil? If you remember?
Yep.
11 correct.
And considering he wasn't born at the time, I think he did very well.
Yeah, so slightly different question this week. Neil's been beavering away over the last couple of weeks, working out a suitable question to ask you and test your darting knowledge. So, Neil, what do we got?
We've got a very nervous-looking Josh, for one.
Yeah.
Those of you that can't see him around the table, he does look very anxious. And for the last few days, he's been asking me to try and get hints of what this is going to be about. Obviously, we've not told him anything, but he is looking decidedly anxious.
I think once we're a few months or maybe even a year or so down the line, we might one day do a video cast and film this, and we can see Josh shaking nervously at the table.
I've got a face for radio, John.
Okay, Neil, what we got?
Okay, so I'm really looking forward to this one, I have to say. So this week, or this episode, I should say, there are 15 questions.
Oh, my word.
And basically what will happen is I will read some lyrics from a walk-on song, and I want Josh to tell me whose walk-on music it is.
Is there bonus points for name of the song and artist?
No.
Is that stretching?
I'm not an X Factor fan.
Let's just ask him for the darts player.
Okay.
I think it's going to be hard enough as the questions go on. So I think they start easy and they do get harder. And obviously we're not listening to the music, and I'll be reading the lyrics. So you're going to have to concentrate. One thing I would say, Josh, is listen very carefully to the lyrics, because even though you might not know the song, you may pick up a hint as to who the player would be.
Thank you for that word of wisdom, Neil.
And don't forget, do play along at home and give yourself a score and let us know how you get on. Tweet us at Josh's Dartistry. Right, Neil, are we ready for question one?
We are. So, question one, I will start. Oh, don't you dare look back. Just keep your eyes on me. I said you're holding back. She said, shut up and dance with me. The woman is
Michael Smith.
Okay.
Straight in. Are we allowing that to stand as an answer?
I think so. Well done.
Okay, first one correct. Well done, Josh. Okay, let's move on to question number... He's making notes, Neil. What's he writing down over there?
I'm writing who I've already said, so I don't say the same person.
Well, we might go for verse 1 at one stage and verse 2 for the next one. No, I'm winding you up. Okay, here we go. Question number 2.
Okay, next song. Do you come from a land down under?
Simon Whitlock.
This is...
Yeah, I hope they get a little bit tougher now, if I'm honest.
There's an air of confidence.
Confidence or arrogance?
It's a fine line between the two. I'd say confidence at the moment. Big grin on his face, less anxiety. Let's make it a little bit harder later on.
Okay, question number 3.
I call you when I need you, when my heart's on fire. You come to me, wild and wired.
The brow is looking furrowed.
Can you repeat the lyrics, please, Neil?
I call you when I need you, when my heart's on fire. You come to me, wild and wired. Now, if you listen to the music, you would get this immediately. So this is why it's a bit tricky.
Am I allowed to answer if he doesn't get it? Because I don't have the answers in front of me.
I don't know if I want to give you the satisfaction.
I'm not... This is flummoxed me. I'm going to say Yella Klassen, but I'm not convinced with that.
Incorrect.
Go on, John.
That is Simply the Best.
Correct.
Oh, Mensa.
Gentle Mensa.
I'm not a Tina Turner lover, though, unfortunately.
I reckon there's loads of JDP listeners screaming the answer down the... well, not down the phone, but...
But you're no Tina Turner, Neil. I'm sorry, you're not.
Okay, so one incorrect. Are you keeping score, Neil? Are you keeping score for how many
I'm
gets?
keeping
just
score.
So we get a final score for Josh at the end of the quiz.
I am also keeping score just in case, you know.
Okay, are we ready for number 4?
Yep.
Here we go.
All right, stop. Collaborate and listen. Ice is back with my brand new invention. Something grabs a hold of me tightly, then I flow that a harpoon daily and nightly. Will it ever stop? Yo, I don't know. Turn off the lights and I'll glow.
That is a tough one. I'm going to say Gerwin Price with the ice link.
Yeah.
To the extreme, I walk a mic like a vandal. Live a stage, wax choke like a candle. Dance. When I speak of that bones, I'm killing your brain like a pot. Okay, yeah, that's for
That was abhorrent.
Now, there's a word I never thought we'd use on this podcast.
It was Gerwin Price. Well done. 2018 Premier League debutant.
Ice, ice, baby. Okay, question number 5.
People in the party, hot, hot, hot. People in the party, hot, hot, hot. They come to the party knowing what they got. They come to the party knowing what they got. I'm hot, you're hot, he's hot, she's hot. I hot, you're hot, he's hot, she's not.
They like a party, don't they? Whoever that is. Peter Wright. Don't stop the party. I don't know.
It was actually Voltage Rob Cross, the 2018 PDC
feeling
World
hot,
Champion.
Listen, Rob, I'm a big fan, Rob, but that walk-on song's got to go, mate.
Do you not think it matches his demeanour and his persona?
Well, no, because you have the Undertaker theme tune, then he comes on to Feeling Hot. It doesn't really go to me.
He doth protest too much, I think, Neil.
Absolutely. Okay, next one.
Number 6.
Getting a little bit harder, I think.
Oh, charming.
Is that a lyric or a...
No. Sorry. These are the lyrics. I finally got to talk to you, and I told you exactly how I felt. Then I held you close to me and kissed you, and my heart began to melt. Girl, you've got control of me.
What the hell is that?
Josh nearly swore.
Sounds like some sort of corny poem, not a walk-on
Again, it's
song.
another one. If you heard the song, you would get instantly.
Well, can you repeat the lyrics for me?
I finally got to talk to you, and I told you just exactly how I felt. Then I held you close to me and kissed you, and my heart began to melt. Girl, you've got control of me.
I haven't got a Scooby-Doo. Not a clue.
Absolute tumbleweed. Neil, what was that?
It's Dave Chisnell.
Chizzy.
The BDO World Championship runner-up from 2010.
Dizzy. By the Wonder Stuff.
Not on my Spotify playlist.
How many's you got right so far?
3 out of 6 so far.
50%, Josh, and they're only getting harder now as well.
This is very difficult.
Okay, let's move on. What number is this, Josh? Neil?
Number 7.
Okay, question.
Can I just ask, what relevance does this have to dart?
Listen, the walk-on is a very, very important part.
It is a very important part
of the darting festival, Josh.
But that's why they play the music. They don't have Neil reading it out every night.
Well, do you know what? We did debate singing them, but we decided that the JDP listener didn't really need to be subjected to that.
You're a big singing fan, John. You know, you've got your own band and all that.
I have. You can follow us at Roundabout Zoo on Twitter. We're available for hire, parties, weddings, and bar mitzvahs. Do get in touch. But yeah, moving on. Neil, what number are we at now?
Number 7.
Question
and
number
Josh,
7.
pay particular attention to the lyrics.
Okay.
In touch with the ground, I'm on the hunt, down, I'm after you. Smell like I sound, I'm lost in a crowd, and I'm hungry like the wolf.
That last one's done. It's got to be Martin Adams, isn't it?
It is Wolfie, the 3-time BDO World Champion. Well done.
Legend.
Dead giveaway. Okay, question number 8.
Ready?
I think so.
Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la.
Is this... Oh, my. Keep on going.
Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la.
How many beers you had,
It's
Neil?
very difficult to read. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la. And Marie, who waits for me.
Peter Manley.
Correct.
Well done. Peter One Dart Manley, the 3-time PDC World Championship runner-up.
Okay, well done, Josh. Here we go with the next question.
Tonight, I'm going to have myself a real good time. I feel alive.
Ronnie Baxter. Don't Stop Me Now.
Confident on that one.
Big fan of that song, Queen.
It was the Rocket Ronnie Baxter, the 1998 World Match Play finalist. Very good, Josh.
Okay, how many's you got so far?
He's got
6.
Josh's keep it score.
6 out of 9. Not bad.
Good, so he's improved slightly.
He's recovered himself.
Okay, question number 10, please, Neil.
Again, lyrics, Josh. Uno, dos, 1, 2, 3, 4. Matty told Hattie a thing she saw had 2 big horns and a woolly jaw. Do you want me to read
Terry Jenkins.
Correct, The Ball.
Well done, the 54-year-old Ball and World Championship semi-finalist from 2011.
My band Roundabout Zoo, we actually play that song. You can follow us on Twitter at Roundabout Zoo.
Moving on.
Thanks, Neil.
I think these are now starting to get much harder.
Oh, lovely.
It's the eye of the tiger. It's the thrill of the fight.
You said
Van Barneveld.
these were getting harder.
There is a catch with this question.
Oh, God, what?
Hang on.
Who, and there are 2 players that I'm aware of, have this walk-on song who are not Raymond van Barneveld?
I think I've got it. Dennis Harbour and Wayne Warren.
They are not the 2 answers on my sheet.
Well, they do both walk onto it because I have voiced my disapproval on... Can we have a steward, please? Stewards.
So...
Everyone's laughing at you, Josh.
I want to stop this now. Let's do a bit of research. Dennis Harbour, Wayne Warren, Eye of the Tiger, BDO. Look it up.
Josh, you're wrong.
I tell you what we'll do. We'll look that up and we'll clarify that by the end of the show.
I can't believe something that's supposed to be a bit of fun, we're getting into stewards' inquiries.
This is serious business, John.
So
my reputation's on the line here.
So other than the obvious Van Barneveld and...
Who did you have?
Peter Everson, the Fen Tiger, winner of the 1989 World Masters and 1996 World Match Play. And Andy Jenkins, also known as Rocky, and currently ranked number 70 in the world.
Well, yeah, let's do a bit of research afterwards. I want to clarify on that.
That's a direct challenge, Neil.
It's all got very serious over here.
For the aggression. Should we move on?
We should.
Okay, next question, please, Neil.
Her, because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof.
Dimitri Van den Berg.
Well?
I'm looking for another player.
Oh, controversy again.
Dimitri Van den Berg walks on to Happy.
Okay. So who's the second player?
Well, I don't know, because I'm focused on Dimitri Van den Berg. If you're going to do it, do it properly.
This show is not all about the PDC.
He's doing it on technicalities here.
I think the majority of my listeners will back me up here. Dimitri Van den Berg.
Yep. So who from the BDO?
Well...
This has got rather messy.
I don't know from the BDO. I'm only talking BDC here.
Ladies BDO.
Ladies BDO. Okay. Lorraine Winstanley.
Great shout, Josh.
So
well
do I
done.
get 2 points for that because they're both correct?
No. So from now on, if you let me finish reading the lyrics.
Okay.
He's a quick on the old trigger there, isn't he, on occasion?
Exactly. And then if there is an extra element to the question, I will let you know.
Okay, I'll let you finish.
Thank you.
It's palpable in here. You can cut it with a knife. Okay, how many questions you got left, Neil?
3.
Okay, 3 to go. Here we go.
Who let the dogs out? Woof, 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 woof. Who let the dogs out? Woof, 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 woof.
Josh nearly swore again.
Who let the dogs out? Woof, 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 woof. Who let the dogs out?
Can I just have more of Neil woofing, please?
He's gone barking mad.
I'm looking for a player from the BDO.
Scott Mitchell.
Of course it is. Scotty Dog Mitchell from the BDO. Well done. Neil, that was brilliant. Never knew you were so talented with animal impressions. A little sideline for you. Okay, we got 2 to go, Neil, yeah?
2 to go, yeah.
2 to go. Okay, here we go.
I'm too sexy for my shirt. Too sexy for my shirt. So sexy it hurts. And I'm too sexy for Milan. Too sexy for Milan, New York and Japan.
You think highly of yourself, don't you?
Woof.
Is this BDO or PDC?
He's played in both. I think at the moment, currently with the BDO.
Do you know the song, Josh?
I do know the song.
Do you know what the song's called?
I don't actually. I don't.
Do you know who the song's by?
No, but I've heard the song.
Let me give you a clue. The song is I'm Too Sexy, and it's by Right Said Fred. Does that help?
Right Said Fred. I've heard this. I just can't put.
He's a BDO. He's a BDO world champion.
BDO world champion. But it ain't Ted Anke, that's for sure. BDO world champion. Scott Waits.
Incorrect.
It is the Viking Andy Fordham.
Andy Fordham.
Well, no comment.
Too sexy for his shirt.
2004 BDO champion.
Okay, unlucky Josh. So we've got one more, Neil, is that right?
Yep, one more to go.
Okay, here we go with the last one. We ready?
Poor old Johnny Ray sounded sad upon the radio, but he moved a million hearts in mono. Our mothers cried, sang along, who'd blame them? Very famous song. Poor old Johnny Ray sounded sad upon the radio, but he moved a million hearts in mono. Our mothers cried, sang along, who'd blame them? This is a ladies' BDO player.
Can you repeat the lyrics again for me?
Poor old Johnny Ray sounded sad upon the radio, but he moved a million hearts in mono. Our mothers cried, sang along, who'd blame them?
Very famous song.
Do you know this one, John?
I know the name of the song and I know the name of the artist.
Yep.
However, I'm struggling to remember the darts player that uses it, if I'm deadly honest.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's not Dita Edmond, because I think she uses the same one as Rob Cross, Feeling Hot. It's obviously not Lorraine Winston.
Can I say the name of the song and the artist, see if that helps, Josh?
Yep.
So the song is Come On Eileen.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, Eileen.
Yeah.
And the artist is Dexys Midnight Runners.
I have to say, that's done me a big favour. It's Eileen de Graaf.
That is correct. Well done, Josh. So how many did he get, Neil?
11.
Sorry, Neil said that without moving his lips.
I think he's got 10 out of 14, and there is a steward's inquiry about one of the other questions.
I'll take that.
So when are you going to go away and do your research, Neil, and let us know the answer?
We will come back and let you know by the end of the show.
Okay, well that concludes this episode's challenge, Josh. Josh, well done. I think you can hold your head up high. I think you've done very, very well considering, but it did get a little bit tetchy in places. And perhaps next time, Neil, we'll stick to some averages or darting stats or something like that.
Probably best.
Okay, well done, Josh.
Challenge Josh.
Okay, before we continue, dear listener, I have to inform you that after Challenge Josh then, we did pause recording the show, and we've been on the internet we've been onto Google and we've done some digging because there was obviously quite a little bit of controversy in Challenge Josh there, a couple of contentious issues, and we've made an interesting discovery. And at this juncture, I'd like to hand it over to Mr. Neil Connor. He's livid.
Okay, I can confirm that both Dennis Harbour and Wayne Warren have used the walk-on music Eye of the Tiger by Survivor, and as a result, Josh has got that question correct.
Thank you, Neil, and I accept your apology.
You might be waiting a while.
Josh, many congratulations, an improved score there, and once again, absolutely fantastic effort for Challenge Josh.
I'm just happy that justice is done, John.
So am I, mate. Listen, I know what you two are like. You'll be banging on about this for weeks if we didn't clarify it and get it correct in the end.
Someone in our research department has just been fired as well. So.
You mean you?
Yes.
You're listening to Josh's Dartistry. Don't forget, you can check us out on Facebook by going to the Josh's Dartistry page. You can follow us on Twitter at Josh's Dartistry, or go to the website www.joshsdartistry.com for all the latest news and insight into the world of darts. You can also leave us a comment or a question via our voicemail box. Just call 07739 738 329 and leave us a message, and we may play it live on air. Now back to the show.
News.
Okay, it's time for our In the News section. We're looking at news stories that perhaps you guys may have missed in the last couple of weeks relating to the darting world. Over to Mr. Neil Connor.
Thank you, John. First one that's caught my eye is a bit of BDO news, and it's to do with the cancellation of the French Open for 2018. So I think this was scheduled for the end of August. And the French Federation of Darts have just communicated to say after the change of planned date, there were issues with the hosting club. And as a result, they've regretfully had to cancel the French Open. Now, this is a tournament. Previous winners include Scott Mitchell, Alan Norris, Martin Adams and Mervyn King. So some sad news in terms of the French Open for 2018, hoping that we'll see that back in 2019.
So we're looking at a relatively big tournament there with all the main players in the BDO generally taking part in that. That is sad news indeed. Josh?
Yeah, it's disappointing news for all involved, but it seems like that was the only decision they were able to take. It's not ideal, but let's hope it returns for 2019.
Okay, Neil, what's next? What we got?
Okay, this is from dartsnews.com, and it's to do with world number one Michael van Gerwen and his pledge to raise money for two charities, one for Make-A-Wish and also Be Gamble Aware Foundation. So he's pledged £100 for every 180 that he scores in the Premier League of Darts. So far, after 9 rounds of darts, he's raised £7,100 for those two charities. So good effort from the world number one, and hopefully many more 180s over the next few weeks.
Yeah, the Make-A-Wish Foundation is a charity that's become really well known over the last few years. It's been around for quite a while, but it's frequently in the news. Make-A-Wish, they do lots of things for young children, and they arrange for the kids to go out on days out. It can be quite sort of low key, just sort of trips out, but it can also be like meeting some of their heroes in and around the sort of, well, not just sporting world. It can be from the world of film, television, and anything else. Make-A-Wish Foundation, they're all over the world, really. I mean, the Make-A-Wish, the American arm of the Make-A-Wish Foundation is absolutely enormous. But it's interesting to note that the amount distributed is going to be fairly distributed, should I say, fairly between the Dutch and the British departments of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So that's absolutely fantastic. I've heard them mention it in commentary a couple of times about Michael's attempts and the amount of 180s that he's get. So it's an absolutely fantastic charity. It's an absolutely fantastic thing that Michael's doing, and I, for one, can only applaud him for his efforts. Josh?
Yeah, fantastic gesture from Michael van Gerwen. not only is he an incredible player, but he also really has a good heart, and this is, like I say, fantastic to see. I remember when he played Mensur Suljovic on Judgment Night, I think he hit about 9 180s, and he was just determined to hit as many as he possibly could to raise as much money as he can. It's fantastic to see these players giving something back, so yeah, big props to Michael van Gerwen.
Okay, Neil, what else you got for us?
Okay, the next one, I touched on this earlier, is a sad piece of news about Darren Webster and something that took place during the Players' Championship 7. Darren, the Demolition Man, had just lost in the last 32 of this PDC event, 6-5 to Max Hopp. And he was on his way back to the hotel where he was confronted by some football supporters who inquired as to whether he was a football supporter, to which he responded no, that he was a darts player, and he was headbutted. Fortunately, Darren is okay and was okay, and was able to take his place in the Players' Championship 8 that was held on the Sunday, but not great news. A totally unprovoked attack on Darren.
Yeah, really, really poor. He was obviously competing, like I say, in Players' Championship 7 in Barnsley, and Barnsley were hosting Sheffield United in a big clash in the Championship at about 12:30, I think it was. So obviously Darren walking back to the hotel where he was confronted. I've attended a few Pro Tour events in Milton Keynes, which is right outside Milton Keynes Stadium, and there's never been a problem between fans and the players, but it's awful. I mean, Darren, we've all seen Darren. He's not the biggest, but he really is one of the gentlemen of the game. He's so enthusiastic, so infectious.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at Darren's Twitter account and also the news report. There's a photo of him, and he's got quite a nasty sort of cut on the bridge of his nose, and it's quite clearly broken. Poor Darren there. Broke his nose. If you do follow Darren Webster on Twitter at Demolition180, he does talk about it, the incident, quite a lot. He did tweet at the time, last 32 today, they walked down the road, about 8 guys say, "Are you a Sheffield supporter?" I said, "No, mate, I'm a dart player," and then he headbutted me. But the interesting thing about the tweet, the last thing he ends with is LOL, lol. So good old Darren, he's taking it on the chin. Well, he's not taking it on the chin, he's taking it on the nose. Nice to see him sort of, being able to put a smile on his face about the incident. I'm sure it was very nasty for him, but he's come out the other side of it, and at least he can put a smile on his face and laugh and joke about it. But yeah, absolutely horrible attack. Nobody deserves that, and we wish Darren all the best and a very, very speedy recovery. Okay, Neil, I believe you got one more story for us.
Yeah, one more story from dartsnews.com. It gives a table that's been drawn up by Burton DeWitt, who's a dart stats expert, regarding the darts manufacturers and the leading darts manufacturers. So basically, the table looks at all the events. It gives you points for winning the event, getting to the final, getting to the semis, getting to the quarters. The more status the tournament has, the more points you get. So, Josh, who would you think is the leading darts manufacturer at this point so far in 2018?
Tough one. I mean, I think Unicorn will be up there because they have Gary Anderson, and he has won, the only real... Michael van Gerwen won the Masters. He belongs to...
XQ-Max.
That's it, XQ-Max, yeah. But obviously Gary belongs to Unicorn. He won the UK Open back in March. He's got to be up there. Target must be within the top 3, I'd say. They've got the likes of, obviously, Rob Cross, Adrian Lewis, Raymond van Barneveld, Corey Cadby as well, who reached the UK Open final. So I'd say they're probably the top 3 if I would have to. Okay,
so you're right. Unicorn are first, and they do have the likes of Michael Smith, James Wade and Gary Anderson. XQ Max is Michael van Gerwen. They're in second, 75 points behind.
Wow.
Target in third, as you said, Corey Cadby, Rob Cross, and in fourth, Red Dragon.
Peter Wright does belong to them, I know.
Peter Wright and Jamie Hughes. Yeah. So Unicorn well in front at the moment.
How much influence does the make of the dart have? Not so much the make of the dart. We all know you need a decent set of darts to perform at the top level. I can't walk into my local branch of Intersport. I don't know if Intersport exists anymore, but I can't walk into my local sports shop and buy a cheap set of darts and expect them to perform for me to get me anywhere. But how much time do the players, Josh, spend with their darts manufacturers, perfecting the darts, and also getting them to work to their own sort of specifics and how comfortable they are with their darts?
They spend an awful lot more time than maybe a lot of people would think. I mean, listen, these players are able to throw anything. We see Peter Wright change his darts regularly, almost every week. But after Raymond van Barneveld and Phil Taylor have joined Target, I think Phil back in about 2014, now Raymond last year. And I know the planning that went into the making of their new dart was meticulous. At the top level, any percentage of an improvement can make a huge difference. So they do put an awful lot of thought and effort into changing their dart. But someone like Michael van Gerwen, for example, has had the same set of darts now for about 10 years. James Wade, another one who's very rarely changed his equipment. So some players experiment and change quite regularly, like Barney, Peter Wright, but others kind of stick with their tried and tested methods.
Okay, well, that concludes the In the News section.
News.
Okay, we're coming towards the end of the show, but before we go, we're going to move on to our Q&A section. As I mentioned earlier, we've had some fantastic questions come in once again over the last couple of weeks. Don't forget, you can send your questions to us via Twitter at Josh's Dartistry. You can also send them on the Facebook page. If you do a little search on Facebook, you will find us. Or, of course, you can leave us a voicemail on our voicemail box.
I feel happy, won't you call me on the telephone? In the morning, won't you call me on the telephone?
Call the boys on 07739 738 329. That's 07739 738 329 and leave them a message.
Okay, guys, the first question comes in from Tungsten Darts, and the question is as follows. After the recent continental European success of Sulovic and Hop, who do you think is the next European to win a PDC event for the first time? Neil?
Difficult question. Someone who I think has a lot of potential after a really promising performance at the World Championship where he reached the quarter-final is Belgium's Dimitri van den Berg, who coincidentally his walk-on song is Happy by Pharrell Williams, which we've learnt during this...
Don't go there.
Okay. So for me, I think he showed a lot of promise at the World Championships, and I think he's got real potential.
Yeah, also Dimitri won the World Youth Championship, hopefully in November, so he's had a fantastic end to the season. He will probably be my answer, actually. I think if you'd have asked me 12 months ago, I'd have said maybe Benito van der Pas. He's won PDC events in Pro Tours, but in terms of like a European Tour or a PDC Major, he would have been one I was looking at. But he's really struggling at the moment for form. He just can't, not just his results, but also his performances. But Benito, he's still only a young man, and I think he can turn it around. And he's shown enough in the last couple of years that he's got the promise to become a big PDC winner.
Okay, thank you, chaps. Next question comes in from Chris Clay. And he asks, are you happy with the final World Series of darts choices? Wade, Smith, RVB. Same old in my opinion. Neil?
Before we let Josh answer that one, Josh, can you explain a bit about the World Series? And I think it's 6 events.
Yeah, we've got 6 events that take place globally before the end of season finals. The World Series of Finals takes place in Vienna in November, but the 6 events are in Germany first. Then it goes to the US Masters in Las Vegas, then Shanghai. Then in August, there's a treble header down under. They visit Auckland, Melbourne, and then Brisbane. The lineup for the German Darts Masters has already been finalised. In terms of the other 5 events, they'd picked the first 6 players. So in the other 5 events, there were still 2 spots remaining. Now, Michael Smith has been rewarded for his brilliant Premier League form. He's been picked in all 5 events. James Wade has been rewarded for his return to form. He's in Las Vegas and Shanghai. And Raymond van Barneveld has been selected for the treble header down under. So Raymond, before this year, never missed a World Series event. He'll be returning down under. So whether it's the same old, I'm not so sure. I mean, I'd have liked to see someone like Ian White. He's never been selected for the World Series before. He's been really, really good on the Pro Tour and the European Tour for a number of years, constantly around the top 16. He beat Michael van Gerwen recently in the Euro Tour event. I'd have liked to see Ian White receive an opportunity, but potentially Adrian Lewis as well, because he's returned to form in the Pro Tours. He's a big name, 2-time world champion, but I think Michael Smith deserves it for his Premier League form. Wade is a big name and has returned to form. And Barney's one of the biggest draws in the game of darts. And as we saw in Rotterdam, he can still produce in the big moments. So, yeah, I'm happy with the selections. What about you guys?
Well, I was going to ask, do you think the World Series events, some of them are, there's some of them by invitation, aren't they, Josh? The invite.
They're all, yeah, I mean, the top 4, Van Gerwen, Wright, Cross and Anderson are selected for all the events. And then you've got Gurney and Price are being selected for the Las Vegas and Shanghai. And also in Australia, they've already got the Simon Whitlock, Carl Anderson and Corey Cabby, the 3 Aussies. Obviously, they're going to be all on home soil. So if they're invite only, then they don't go towards the world rankings. But it's the World Series aim is to try and promote the sport of darts globally. And obviously, in Germany, you want the German players. You want obviously Mensur Suljovic is the German-speaking player. He's in Germany. Obviously, in Australia, you want your home nation players. So it makes sense. But it's about obviously trying to promote the sport of darts. So to do that, you need the biggest names in the world.
I agree, but my question was going to be, perhaps, let's say, for example, let's take Ian White, who we were just discussing. Perhaps Ian White might indicate that, listen, that's a grueling schedule, all right? We're going all around the world with these events. Somebody might indicate that, after the regular season, they're not prepared to perhaps travel to those events. I know they've got sponsors, but it costs a lot of money to get round the world, and it's a grueling schedule, and you're away from home again for long periods of time. Perhaps certain people aren't picked because whether they do it publicly or privately, they might indicate that they don't really want to take part. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a possibility. I mean, last year, Adrian Lewis and Marco van Gerwen both missed out on the Australian set of World Series events because their wives were both giving birth during that time. Obviously, they wanted to be at home with their family. So, but I think people like someone like Ian White, I think he deserves the opportunity. Maybe he has been offered, maybe he's turned it down. We don't know. It's only speculation. But I see what you mean, and the schedule is demanding. And for when those players are out travelling in World Series events, there are sometimes other Pro Tour events going on.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is about selling tickets as well. They want to obviously get as many bums on seats in the particular venues that these events are taking place at. And like it or not, whether you like the choices, that the organisers make or not. They want the people who are going to sell tickets, are going to, as I say, put bums on seats and are going to be the absolute major attractions to the event. So it is a difficult choice. Variety is the spice of life, as they say, and it would be nice to see other players taking parts in these particular tournaments, but I don't really think you can blame the organisers because at the end of the day, dollar is key, Josh.
Yeah, and also I just wanted to mention that in the German Darts Masters, we will see Max Hopp because obviously you've got 8 players selected by the PDC and then also 8 German qualifiers. He's recently won a European Tour event. He will be one of the German qualifiers. You've also got Jamie Lewis, who reached the World Championship semi-finals. He'll be in Germany alongside someone Neil mentioned a few minutes ago, Dimitri van den Berg. So they'll be getting their opportunity in the World Series for the first time, which is fantastic to see.
Okay, moving on from the World Series. This question comes in for Reece Cleland, and it is very much a question for Mr. Josh Gorton. What is it that drew you to Barney? For me, it's his silky throw. Also, do you think Cross will win another major this year? Me and Neil are going to put our feet up for the next 10 minutes while Josh waxes lyrical about Raymond van Barneveld.
In terms of Barney, what first drew me, like I say, I think Reece makes a very good point. He's got one of the smoothest actions in the game. When Raymond's in full flow, it's a delight to watch. But I have to say, it was almost by chance, really. My first time watching the darts, as I think I mentioned in the debut podcast, was around about 2006 when Raymond played at the Lakeside against Jelle Klassen. He lost the final, then switched to the PDC. And obviously watching darts for me then was very new, and I decided to follow Raymond as he was the newcomer in the PDC. But I've been very fortunate, obviously, since starting my blog, to have met and interviewed Raymond on a number of occasions. Not only is he a fantastic player, a 5-time world champion, he's also a real gentleman of the game, one of the most popular players worldwide. So, yeah, and it's fantastic. They always say never meet your heroes, but I've not been disappointed in terms of meeting Raymond in the past. That's all I can say.
Well, I do believe, Josh, that you had a tweet from Mr. Barneveld himself this afternoon.
Yeah, I'm very chuffed with that. I wrote an article this morning about Raymond and his ability to rise to the big occasion as he did in Rotterdam against Marco van Gerwen. And yeah, he took to Twitter thanking me for the article, which was a very nice touch.
Yeah, always nice to get a bit of social media reaction from the great man himself. Going back, talking to Barney, my first memory of Barney, the first time I ever saw Barney play, believe it or not, was on Bullseye.
Oh, really?
He appeared on Bullseye in 1991. And I rewatched it a couple of weeks ago, funnily enough, after we did the Jim Bowen tribute.
Yeah.
I was watching some old episodes, and I like to look up and have a look at the players that have appeared on the charity throw. And I watched Barney's episode. I forget what he scored now. The one thing I did note, he had a lot more hair when he appeared on Bullseye back in...
I think it's a Dutch thing now. Van Gerwen, Barney, Van der Vault, kissed.
So yeah, baldness is key. Talking of baldness, the second question that Reece asked, do you think Cross will win another major this year, Josh?
Listen, he hasn't won a PDC major since winning the world title, or PDC title, sorry, since winning the world title. If you're going to win one, win the world championship title. I mean, Rob is in more events this year, because let's not forget, last year he was a newcomer on the PDC Tour. He was starting from scratch. So he didn't have as high ranking as he has now. He's world number 3. I think last year, when he was in the World Match Play World Grand Prix, he was drawing C's in the first round, so his route was more difficult. As world number 3 this year, he's going to have more favourable draws in the early rounds, which should suit him. I mean, I think a few times last year he was playing Michael van Gerwen in the quarterfinals of the last 16, which won't be the case this year. But as we discussed with Adrian Lewis discussing his chances of winning the majors this year, there's so many players now in the world of darts that are capable of winning majors. I mean, Michael van Gerwen last year, despite his dominance, didn't win either of the World Grand Prix, the World Match Play, or the World Championship, 3 of the biggest events on the calendar. So it's not a given by any stretch. But Rob Cross, even though he lacks a lot of experience, he makes up for that in his ability, his temperament, and I think he's going to be a real contender for every tournament he competes in.
Do you think he will win another major if he changes his walk-on music?
I have to say, I don't think that'll be a massive factor in it. But you never know.
I noted earlier in Challenge, Josh, you weren't overly pleased with...
I love Rob Cross. He's a fantastic player, really nice guy. But yeah, I have to say, I think the walk-on's got to go, Rob.
Neil, any comments on Rob Cross?
I think he's a great player. I think it's remarkable what he's done in such a short space of time, and I think he's right up there with Gary Anderson, Michael van Gerwen, Peter Wright and the like. So it would not surprise me at all if he was to win another major, and maybe more than one.
Okay, moving on then. We've had a message from Jordan Harrison. He asks, what sparked Peter Wright's change in fortune, and is it the new darts, Josh?
Well, I spoke to Peter a couple of weeks ago when I was working at Sky in a preview for Judgment Night. And he was saying sometimes when he's struggling, it's usually in practice as well that he can't get to grips with it. But he was saying in practice, and he was playing really well, hitting 9 darts for fun. Just on the big stage, he was struggling. So maybe it was a confidence thing. Because we all know Peter Wright, the ability he possesses. He's turned it around in recent weeks. Still not been at his very best, but obviously we saw him beat Van Gerwen in Rotterdam, draw of Cross. I think his Premier League hopes are probably over for this year. But I think with Peter Wright, I don't think the change of darts always helps him. Because if you change every week, it's impossible to get that continuity, that sort of rhythm. But the darts he used in Rotterdam on both nights are the darts I think he should use going forward for the rest of the year. And it'll be interesting to see if he sticks with one set of darts for a while, if that'll help him start winning titles again. Because I don't think he's won a title yet this year, which is surprising when you consider he won 11 last year.
Yeah, I tend to agree that confidence, like in any sport really, can make a massive difference, and there has been an upsurge in his form, and that will lead to an upsurge in his confidence. So I think he's reached 3 finals fairly recently. There was the Players' Championship 3 in Barnsley,
yeah, and obviously 2 Euro finals.
Yeah, the European Darts Open and the German Darts Grand Prix as well. So good performances in getting to the final of those 3 events, and confidence has increased, and he's subsequently playing better.
Definitely.
Okay, final question of the show comes in from Chris Bull, and he asks, what would the panel's walk-on music be? Ooh. And why? Let's go to Neil.
Thank you, put me on the spot. Something motivational. I would probably go for...
Tragedy?
I would probably go for Eye of the Tiger. No, I wouldn't, Josh. Don't worry. I would go for something like Right Here, Right Now by Fatboy Slim.
Ironic.
No. Play nicely, please.
Yeah. So there's a message in whose song this is, Fatboy Slim, but also it's one of my favourite gym tracks and quite motivational.
Jim, Josh,
it's a tough one. This I don't know. I think I'd have to go for something quite upbeat. I quite like Dimitri Van den Berg's sort of happy walk-on song. Gets everyone fired up. Enjoying the moment. I don't know, something like Dynamite by Tayo Cruz. I'm going to go as an outside shot.
He's
there.
Down with the kids, is Josh.
I am. I'm down with the kids.
I don't even know what that song is.
I'll play it to you later.
Well, I can talk the lyrics to you if you want, Neil.
Maybe not. I think I would have to go with, if ever I got to a position where I was good enough to throw a dart professionally, which is never going to happen, let's be honest. But I would, mine's pretty definite. I would go for Johnny Be Good by Chuck Berry. Chuck Berry is a bit of a legend for me. Grew up listening to his music thanks to my mum and dad owning their records. Probably one of the earliest songs I remember hearing as a very young boy. I've got the musical notes tattooed on my right arm. The first 4 bars of Johnny Be Good. My name is John. It's the first song I ever sang with a live band.
Are you in a band?
I'm in a band. I'm in a band called Roundabout Zoo, and you can follow us on Twitter at Roundabout Zoo. And we do perform Johnny Be Good quite often towards the end of the night. So I think it's a great song. I think it gets everyone up. If you remember the film Back to the Future, Michael J. Fox obviously got up on stage and sang it before he smashed his guitar up and smashed the speakers up and everything else that was on stage. So yeah, definitely Johnny Be Good is definitely my walk-on song.
Good question, but I guess something that will never ever happen. Having seen you two play darts.
Harsh.
Josh is Dartistry. Josh is Dartistry. Josh is Dartistry. Josh is Dartistry.
Well, that brings us handily to the end of the show. Quite an action-packed show. I thought there's quite a lot of content in there for this episode. Lots of things to discuss. Josh?
Yeah, really, it's been a very busy show. Really enjoyed your company. We've had a lot to cover. Obviously, with busy few weeks of Premier League action, the Euro Tour. Quite a contentious challenge, Josh, this week. I'm looking forward to the next instalment. But yeah, very good. Really enjoyed the show, and I hope the listeners enjoy it.
Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter at Josh's Dartistry. Check out the Facebook page, Josh's Dartistry, and also log on to www.joshisdartistry.com. You'll find all of Josh's latest news, blogs, reviews, and darting information on the website. Neil, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. No question what the favourite part of the show for me was.
Challenge, Josh?
No.
The apology you had to issue?
Nope.
The prediction competition, which he's winning.
Correct.
Boring. Okay. Josh, thank you very much for your time.
Many thanks, John.
My name's John, and hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Cheers.
Dartistry. Josh is Dartistry. Josh is Dartistry. Josh is Dartistry.